So there I was, just trying to take my little sister Molly out for a walk, when yet another idiot decided to block our path in the middle of the street. This one's name was Jonathan, a quasi-baron. Big guy, almost 6'3", wearing full armor, and giving me this whole speech about how I don't deserve my baron title. How I can't use magic, can't fight, can't do anything useful. Meanwhile, he killed a few magic beasts on the battlefield and only got a quasi-baron rank. So how is that fair? Blah blah blah. I covered Molly's ears first. Told her not to listen because if you hear too many stupid people talk, you become stupid too. She nodded very seriously and pressed her little hands over her ears tight. Good kid. Then I cut him off mid-rant. Yeah, I get it. You want to know why a useless guy like me gets to be a baron while you had to nearly die for a lower rank. He started agreeing and going on about how I must have tricked the king, so I waved him closer. Come here, lean down a bit. Let me tell you why. And this absolute genius actually did it. Slap. Left cheek. Slap. Right cheek. Beautiful symmetry. Could hang that on a wall. He grabbed my collar, ready to beat me up. Fair enough. But I didn't even flinch. Just looked up at him with my best calm expression and asked, "You want to hit me?" That cooled him down real fast. Because here's the thing about me. I might be useless, but I'm the most expensive useless person in this entire empire. I laid it out for him nice and simple. Sure, we could have a duel. He'd win in one move, no question. But then my mother, an imperial saint-level mage, definitely would not freeze his entire estate with an extreme frost storm. My father, the empire's only dragon rider, absolutely would not fly over and flatten his family's territory. And my uncle, oh, he's just the king, certainly would not strip his father's earl title and execute his whole family. Nope, none of that would happen. He'd just get a small penalty for a lower noble attacking a higher noble. Easy to earn back. Just go kill a few more monsters. I watched the fear slowly creep into his eyes as his tiny brain finally processed what he'd gotten himself into. Now do you understand why I can be a baron without doing anything? I spread my hands wide. Because my last name is Bai Long. As in the Bai Long Empire's Bai Long. My dad's a dragon knight. My mom's a magic saint. My uncle's the king. And you? You're an earl's illegitimate son who can't even inherit daddy's title. What right do you have to question me? I poked his chest with every sentence. This near 6'3" warrior stumbled backwards like I was pushing him with a battering ram. I told him if he wants to send someone to bother me next time, at least pick someone smart. Then I mentioned that my little sister's fireball had been aimed at his head for a while now. Everyone turned around and saw Molly standing there with a fireball hovering in her tiny hand, her adorable face practically stamped with the words, "I'm angry," little lips pouting at Jonathan like he owed her candy money. He scrambled away looking absolutely pathetic. "All right, Molly, let's go buy you some candy." I ruffled her hair. She was still glaring in his direction, but obediently let the fireball fizzle out. Priorities, you know? Candy beats revenge. Oh, and apparently Jonathan didn't get very far before my older sister Gloria caught him on horseback with a spear pointed at his chest. "You called my brother what?" she asked in that ice-cold voice of hers. "Your Highness, I can explain." "Explain?" "Sorry, I can't be bothered to listen. Yeah, that's my family. I don't need to lift a finger. They do it for me." After dealing with that idiot Jonathan, I'd honestly lost my mood for shopping. But little Molly hadn't been outside in ages, so she was still bouncing around looking at everything with those bright eyes of hers. Kids got unlimited energy. I was getting tired just following her around. We found a little drink shop, and I bought 2 cups of sugar water and some snacks for 1 silver coin. 1 silver coin. For basically water with a tiny bit of sugar in it. That's enough to buy a low-grade slave in this world. 16 years I've been here, and I still can't get used to how expensive sugar is. I handed my cup to Molly. She grabbed one in each hand, and her smile got even bigger. If this kid ever tasted real milk tea from my previous life, she'd probably ascend to heaven on the spot. I leaned back on the bench and stared at the sky, thinking about how I got here. 16 years ago, back in China, I got hit by a truck. You know how people joke about Japanese truck drivers being ice sky transporters? Well, Chinese cargo trucks work just as well, apparently. One second I'm crossing the street. Next second I'm a baby staring at some bearded guy's face. The midwife slapped me several times, and I didn't cry. Then I saw my new dad's bushy beard, and that scared the tears out of me. At least I was an orphan in my past life. No one to miss me. Well, maybe the truck driver was upset, but probably more about his own situation than mine. So here's the thing about this world. Magic is everywhere. Even regular commoners can throw a fireball to light their cooking stove. But me? My magic talent is basically zero. I can barely produce a tiny flame that's smaller than a cigarette lighter. Pathetic. And the warrior path? Also closed. I've been sickly since birth, nearly died in bed multiple times before adulthood. Only survived because the royal family kept feeding me rare medicines and treasures. Meanwhile, my mom became the youngest magic saint in history. My dad gave up his claim to the throne and tamed a giant dragon through pure brute strength as a teenager. Two absolute monsters for parents, and their firstborn son inherited exactly none of it. Some people even whispered that maybe I wasn't really their kid. Trust me, I was there from day one. I saw the bearded face. I'm definitely his son. Other transmigrators get cheat systems and golden fingers. I got zero talent, a body made of glass, and years of nearly dying. Finally made it to adulthood. My uncle the king felt sorry for me and gave me a barren title, and even that made people come yell at me. Life's rough. Anyway, while I was sitting there wallowing in self-pity, a convoy stopped in front of the shop. Slave catchers. Behind their scaled beast horses were cages packed full of slaves, crammed so tight they could barely turn around. The stench hit me from across the street. Technically, these convoys aren't supposed to stop inside the city, but no guards were patrolling nearby, so the leader didn't bother following the rules. A muscular guy came over and politely asked if he could sit next to me. He had a little girl about Molly's age with him, probably his daughter. She was staring at Molly curiously while sipping her sugar water. Not sure why he'd bring his kid on a slave delivery run, but whatever. I scooted over and let them sit. Look, I'm not going to pretend I hate the slave system. Slaves are a major labor force in this kingdom, and I benefit from it too. Most slaves are from border tribes, though there are humans as well. Humans at least get a slightly better deal. Serve your master for 10 years, and you can be released to commoner status even without any special merits. And slave catchers aren't allowed to capture humans. That's about as much kindness as the ruling class shows its own species. Though somehow the slave markets never seem to run low on human slaves, and freed commoners stay suspiciously rare. Once Molly finished her drinks, I got up to leave. That's when things went sideways. One of the cage doors popped open. Either the lock was old and rusty or some slave knew how to pick it. A flood of slaves burst out and scattered in every direction, desperate for freedom. The muscular guy next to me cursed and jumped up. Turns out he was the convoy leader. If these slaves caused trouble in the city, he'd be in deep trouble. His guards moved fast, using magic and clubs to round up most of them. But a dozen or so broke through and came running straight toward me and Molly. I wasn't worried. Protect the young master and young miss. My shadow guards appeared out of nowhere, because of course my family has people following me at all times. I covered Molly's eyes. What came next wasn't something a little girl should see. Blood, limbs, the works. In seconds, almost every slave running our way was cut down. Almost. Because one tiny little figure managed to slip right between the guard's legs and kept running straight at us. My shadow guards were freaking out. They'd let a tiny kid slip right past them. That's a serious failure on their part. If it had been a small-sized assassin instead of some little beastkin child, they'd be paying with their lives. I looked at the little thing hiding behind me, covered head to toe in filth. Couldn't even tell what she looked like underneath all that dirt. But she had these big, watery eyes that were actually pretty cute. And on top of her head, 2 rabbit ears, twitching and standing straight up because she was scared. A rabbit beastkin, the most common type of slave in the empire. They breed fast like the larger beastkin races, but are physically weaker than humans. So they get captured in huge numbers from beyond the border and sold everywhere. I watched her trembling ears bounce up and down. Kind of entertaining, not gonna lie. You guys were short-handed, and this little one is. Well, compact. It's understandable you missed her. Don't let it happen again, I told my guards. They'd been protecting me around the clock and just saved me and Molly from being trampled. Punishing them over one harmless kid slipping through felt wrong. I just skipped their bonus this time. Call it even. The young master is merciful, they said, clearly relieved. They know they're lucky to work for me. Any other noble would have taken half their lives for a mistake like that. Anyone got money on them? I asked. I had cash, but only gold coins. My last silver went to the sugar water. 1 gold coin equals 100 silver, and I really didn't want to deal with making change. One of my guards pulled out about a dozen silver coins. Should be enough. I'll have the head maid pay you back when we get home. I was about to walk over to the convoy leader when I looked around at all the severed limbs and blood pooling on the ground. Clean this up, would you? The street cleaners are going to have a heart attack. Oh, and someone cover Molly's eyes. She's too young for this. She'll have nightmares. A female guard pulled out a blindfold and put it on Molly. Of course, telling a kid her age that something would give her nightmares only made her more curious. She kept trying to peek, but the guard held her hands over the blindfold. Molly puffed out her cheeks in frustration. Classic. I walked over to the convoy leader with the little rabbit girl still hiding behind me. The guy was terrified. He wasn't stupid. He'd seen my trained shadow guards appear out of thin air and figured out I was somebody important. And his slaves had nearly run me over because of his crew screw-up. For a noble, killing him on the spot would cost nothing more than a small fine. He shoved his daughter behind him and threw himself flat on the ground. I'm so sorry, my lord. Those damn slaves nearly hurt you. Please forgive me. I'll give you everything I own. Gone was the friendly, hey buddy, from earlier. Now it was all, my lord, this, and my lord that. Get up, man. My hands are full of coins. I can't exactly help you off the ground, I said flatly. He relaxed a tiny bit, hearing I wasn't about to execute him. How much for this slave? I pointed at the rabbit girl. My lord, please just take her. Consider it my apology. Before he could finish, his own daughter cut in. Daddy said these slaves belong to the slave market. You can't sell them outside the market. They have to be bought and sold inside the market. The man looked like his soul left his body. See, that rule was just something he'd told his kid, a technicality he never actually followed. And now she blurted it out to a nobleman who could have them both killed on a whim and take every slave for free. My lord, please don't be angry. Children say silly things. Don't mind her. If you want any of these slaves, take as many as you like. They're my gift to you. He clamped his hand over his daughter's mouth, shaking like a leaf. I looked at the little girl. Pretty cute kid, dressed in expensive clothes, nicer than what her father was wearing. Slave trading is clearly good business. She was living well. I crouched down and waved her over. Come here, little one. The man nearly collapsed, clutching his daughter and trembling. His baby girl was his whole world, and he thought I was about to hurt her for mouthing off. Relax. I'm not angry, I said. I represent my family's reputation. I'm not about to bully a child. Besides, the kid wasn't even wrong. There is a rule about only trading slaves inside the market. It's just that nobody follows it, because how else would people skim profits on the side? But the man clearly didn't believe me. He kept holding his daughter tight, not letting go. The convoy leader eventually had to let go of his daughter. He watched with pure terror as I patted the little girl's head, probably imagining I was about to crush her skull. Please. With my pathetic body, I couldn't even crush a watermelon. What's your name, little one? I crouched down and gave her my friendliest smile. I'm Beth. No fear at all, this kid. Just started chatting with me like we were old friends. So Beth, why are you tagging along with your dad? Transporting slaves is kind of dangerous. Aren't you worried about getting hurt? I playfully tapped her nose. Her father probably saw that as me threatening to slice up his daughter's face. The man was practically vibrating with fear. I'm a little scared, she admitted, glancing at the severed limbs in the distance and shrinking back. But I like a really cute little slave, and Daddy said these slaves already belong to the slave market. You have to wait until they get delivered before you can buy them. Makes sense. But couldn't your dad just buy it for you later? You didn't need to come along. Her little lips puffed out even more. Daddy already broke his promise a bunch of times. I was scared he'd trick me again, so I followed him. I looked up at the convoy leader. That's not very nice, breaking promises to your kid like that. The man shivered again. Poor guy? Cur. I called out to the guard who'd lent me the silver coins earlier. He ran over, but before he reached me, I tossed the coins his way. My throwing is absolutely terrible. The coins scattered through the air like confetti. But Kerr's a professional. Every single coin landed neatly in his palm, without one hitting the ground. Young Master's coin-tossing form is as dashing as ever, he said with a straight face. Stop kissing up? I said that, but I'm pretty sure my mouth was curving upward. Hey, I enjoy a little flattery. Sue me. The little girl is right. Rules are rules, and even I should follow them. Kerr, take this money and the rabbit girl to the slave market. Buy her for me. Legally, properly, by the book. Understood. Kerr nodded and grabbed the little rabbit beastkin. All right, sir, you can go now. Move quickly. Don't hold up my purchase. The convoy leader bowed so deep I thought he'd fold in half. Thank you, my lord. Your kindness, I will never forget. Your radiance outshines the very sun. Then he grabbed Beth's hand and power walked back to his wagon, clearly fighting every urge to sprint. Once the convoy rolled away and my guards finished cleaning up the bodies and blood, they even sprayed some magic potion to get rid of the smell. I turned around and couldn't help grinning. Who else has money on them? I asked, barely holding back laughter. One guard raised her hand. I have a few silver coins, young master. Few silver might not be enough. I pulled out a shiny gold coin and tossed it to her. Honey, follow that convoy. Find out which slave little Beth wanted to buy. Then buy it before her dad can. My grin got wider. And someone else, go report them for illegally stopping inside the city. They didn't cause any major disaster, but a fine is definitely in order. Hey, time for that little girl to learn what the real world is like. Young master, honey, the guard, didn't quite know what to say. I can tell she thinks I'm being childish. Most of the time I look mature and composed, but sometimes. Yeah, okay, I have my petty moments. What are you staring at? Go, they scattered. Suddenly the whole street was empty, just me and Molly. All the bystanders had fled when the slaves escaped, and even the drink shop had locked its doors. I took Molly's blindfold off. The little sneak had been trying to peek the whole time, but the guards cleaned everything up fast enough that there was nothing left to see, not even a smell. Brother, she called out in that sweet little voice, trying to distract me from noticing she'd been fidgeting with the blindfold. I let it slide. All the shops are closed now, Molly. Time to go home. Ah, hey, I heard Uncle is hosting a family banquet tonight. Lots of yummy food. Her eyes lit up instantly. Those light blue eyes of hers practically sparkled. Really? Really? When has your big brother ever lied to you? I squeezed her little cheeks. Little sisters are truly the most adorable creatures in existence. Especially my little sister. And no, I am absolutely not a lolicon. She's just genuinely cute. Totally different thing. I clapped my hands toward the shadows. Get us a carriage. My legs are killing me. Within minutes, a carriage pulled up, with a dragon head carved on the front, because of course nothing in my family is subtle. When Molly and I got home by carriage, I was surprised to find my uncle already there. That's right, my uncle, King Borg by long, ruler of the entire White Dragon Kingdom, just casually hanging out in our living room. My parents were with him, and so was my cousin Gloria. Hi, Uncle. Molly waved and called out to him in that sugary voice of hers. Little Molly, did you miss your uncle? Borg scooped her up and spun her around in the air, grinning like an idiot. My dad crossed his arms. This girl walks in and doesn't even call for her father first. Goes straight to you. Well, brother, who do you think raised her? Of course she likes me more. Borg held Molly up like a trophy. Fair point. Dad's been out fighting wars most of my life. To keep us safe and to shut up the critics, Molly and I stayed in the capital. Uncle Borg and the Queen basically raised us. So yeah, Molly's closer to him than to Dad. Can't really blame her. Dad turned away with a humph, pouting like a child. Two of the most powerful men in the kingdom, acting like kindergartners fighting over who's the favorite. Uncle, the banquet isn't for a while. Why are you here so early? I asked. What? The great Baron by Luo doesn't welcome his uncle. His Majesty's presence in our humble home fills it with radiance and glory, I replied with a dramatic bow. Borg looked at my dad. Brother, look at your son. I tease him once, and he puts on a whole act. Dad fired back. I wonder who raised him to be like that. Beautiful. Borg's own earlier comeback about raising Molly just boomeranged right into his face. All right, enough. Borg got serious. By Luo, I heard some punk gave you trouble on the street today. I'm not just his nephew. I'm also a baron he personally appointed. Some nobody quasi-baron harassing me was basically disrespecting the king himself. If by trouble, you mean a guy willingly stuck his face out so I could slap both cheeks, then yes, that happened. Trouble? Who was troubling who? A guy nearly 6'3" got double slapped by me, mocked to his face, and ran away like a scared puppy. If anything, he got bullied. Ha ha ha. That's my boy. Dad walked over and clapped my shoulder proudly. Mom came over too, worried as always. You're not hurt, are you? I'm fine, Mother. His face was just a bit thick, made my hand sting a little. Gloria whispered something in Borg's ear, and his serious expression cracked into a big smile. Probably told him the full story of how pathetically Jonathan ran off. Good lad. As long as you didn't get the short end. Uncle, you still haven't told me why you're actually here. I wasn't buying that the king of the entire kingdom showed up just because some idiot bothered me. And he'd brought Gloria along too, who just got back from the front lines. Turns out I was half wrong. He didn't come because of Jonathan, but running into Gloria was actually a coincidence. I'm here to give you your coming-of-age gift, obviously. Borg pulled a map out of his storage ring. Gift? Today was my birthday, my 16th. In this world, men are considered adults at 16, women at 14. But usually you give gifts at the banquet, not before. Stop overthinking. Just pick a piece of land, kid. He unrolled the map. Land. He was giving me land. The map had territories circled in different colors. Green meant fertile soil, obedient locals, easy to manage. Yellow meant average land, average people, survivable. Red meant barren wasteland, basically worthless. That's when it hit me. My uncle was offering me an entire territory as my gift. Uncle, this doesn't follow the rules. I frowned. In the White Dragon Kingdom, territory is distributed by rank. Dukes get multiple cities with populations of 100,000. Marquises get one such city. Earls get a town of about 10,000. Viscounts get a small town of a couple thousand. And barons? Barons don't get land at all. We're just allowed to build a personal estate that houses maybe a few dozen people. As for Jonathan's quasi-baron rank, that's not even a real title. Can't even build an estate. This system was established when the kingdom was founded. Keep most of the land under royal control to maintain power. By every law on the books, a baron like me cannot own territory. Uncle, I really don't think. Forget the rules. Your father conquered this land with his sword. I govern it with my crown. Our rules are the rules. Now pick. I looked at my dad, hoping he'd talk some sense into his brother. I mean, I already got a baron title for doing absolutely nothing, and half the kingdom thinks I'm a useless waste of space. If I now get a whole territory on top of that, the line of people wanting to curse my name would stretch from the city gates to the Parliament Hall. I don't care about my own reputation. It's already in the garbage. But I can't drag my dad's name down with me. He's my meal ticket. My entire future plan of riding his coattails depends on people respecting him. If this stunt damages his reputation, how am I supposed to wave his banner around and boss people? Dad couldn't read my mind, though. He just thought I was being a goody-goody about following rules. He patted my shoulder. Just pick one. Once you break this rule, people won't curse you for it. They'll probably thank you in secret. Huh? Dad sat down and explained. Your uncle is planning to give territories to all barons. Actually, he's expanding the land grants for every noble rank below Marquis. You're just getting first pick. Tonight's banquet is technically a family dinner, but we're royalty. Marquises and earls will show up whether we want them to or not. Your uncle plans to announce the expansion right there, bypassing Parliament entirely. Since we're giving out more land anyway, might as well let you choose your favorite piece first. Royal family privilege. Besides, you're old enough now. The baron next door has kids running around already, and you're not even worried. I almost asked why they were suddenly doing this, but caught myself. This was decided by my dad and uncle, the two most powerful men in the kingdom. Not my place to question, but they explained anyway. It was pretty straightforward. After centuries of conquest, the kingdom's territory had grown to over 10 times what it was when the nobility system was first created. But the number of nobles hadn't grown nearly as much. The crown had been suppressing aristocratic power for generations, which meant over 60% of all land was directly controlled by the royal family. That used to be manageable. Each generation had a dozen princes and princesses to distribute land to. But this generation, Borg looked pointedly at my dad. Someone hacked through all their brothers, sisters, uncles, and aunts until there were only 2 royals left. With that much territory and nobody to manage it, what did you expect? Don't look at me like that. I wasn't the only one swinging. Who killed third brother? That wasn't me. And remind me who said the royal family is the kingdom's biggest cancer? Dad grinned with all his teeth showing. I knew the story. It was supposed to be classified, but I was technically involved as bait. Here's the short version. My grandfather, great-grandfather, and several kings before them all loved raising their children like fighting insects in a jar. Officially, the rule was, eldest inherits, But in practice, every generation of royals was left to murder each other for the throne. Assassinations were constant. You could fill the entire Parliament hall with the corpses of royals killed by their own family. I even got assassinated as a newborn by one of my own uncles. Though, to be fair, Dad and Uncle Borg had deliberately used baby me as bait to lure him out. Great parenting, right? But my dad was different from every previous generation. He tamed a giant dragon through raw physical strength before he was even an adult, becoming the only dragon knight in a century. None of his royal siblings could match that. And dear old Dad, bless his heart, just couldn't bear to watch his brothers and sisters kill each other anymore. So naturally, he teamed up with Uncle Borg and killed them all himself. Brothers, sisters, ambitious uncles, gone. And to make sure it stuck, he fed their children to his dragon. Couldn't stand watching siblings murder each other, so he did the murdering personally. What a compassionate man. The official story was that a plague swept through the royal family. Nobody believed it, but nobody dared say otherwise. Afterwards, Dad refused the throne out of guilt and gave up his prince title to go conquer new territory as penance. But I saw his face just now, chatting about his dead siblings with a big smile. Zero guilt detected. I actually witnessed the conversation where these two decided who'd be king. I was 1 year old, so they didn't think I'd remember. Dad basically beat Borg into submission and forced him to take the crown. Anyway, knowing all this, the territory expansion made perfect sense. All the princes were dead. Dad, the only living prince, gave up his title. There was one duke, one marquis, only 3 earls, and a few hundred viscounts with tiny plots. No one was left to manage everything. Looks like you figured it out, Borg said. But besides the management problem, we've also been way too harsh on the nobility for centuries. Ruling people is like fishing. You can't keep the line tight forever. Sometimes you have to let out some slack. We're in an expansion era right now. Giving nobles more land will motivate the knights and mages on the front lines. While your father and I can still fight, we want to leave you kids the biggest kingdom possible, Dad nodded. So pick, son. We recommend one of the green zones we marked: fertile land, easy people, good income. Plus they're next to my territory, so I can keep an eye on things. I stared at that map like a kid in a candy store. Every colored patch represented land that would be completely mine. The people, the resources, everything. On my own territory, I could do whatever I wanted as long as there wasn't a full-blown revolt. And even if there was, Dad could send a squad of knights to squash it before lunch. The thought of my future life was making me a little giddy, not gonna lie. Then I noticed something weird. There were circles drawn outside the kingdom's borders. Gray ones. Dad, what are these gray circles about? He barely glanced at them. Oh, those. We haven't conquered that land yet. If you pick one, I'll go take it. Should be done by end of the year. That's my dad. The only dragon knight in the world, everybody. I'll just go conquer it real quick, no biggie. I kept scanning the map, but there were too many choices. My brain started to short circuit. While I was zoning out, my finger was unconsciously tapping on one particular territory, a red zone. The worst kind. Ha ha ha. That's my boy. Going straight for the hardest one, Dad slapped my back proudly. Wait, what? I snapped back to reality. What did I just do? Uncle Borg frowned and studied where my finger had landed. This territory is complicated. 200 miles north is the kingdom border, right up against the elves' verdant forest. Part of that forest is actually inside the territory. To the south, it borders the endless mountains where small beastkin tribes roam constantly. The racial situation there is extremely complex. I'd suggest you reconsider. I was about to explain that I didn't actually choose this. It was an accident, but then Borg's words sank in. Complex racial situation, meaning lots of different species living there. Different species means different species girls, elf girls, beastkin girls, half-elf girls, dwarf girls. A full collection catalog of exotic beauties. I needed to confirm this. Casually. Very casually. Uncle, you mentioned the racial situation is complex. Yes, there are elves, half-elves, small beastkin, dwarves, and more. Basically every race on the continent can be found there. Borg stroked his chin thoughtfully. And if you go a few dozen miles further past where the endless mountains meet the verdant forest, you hit the Chaos Sea. People have spotted legendary magical beasts there, and extremely rare races that appear nowhere else. It's so chaotic that even slave-catching teams won't go near it. The only upside is the territory is huge, almost town-sized. But that doesn't matter much when the population is under 500 people in one tiny village. There are plenty of beastkin and elves around, but they're not kingdom citizens, so they're nearly impossible to govern. I really think you should pick something else. Wait, why are you smiling like that? I quickly wiped the drool. The tear of emotion, from the corner of my mouth. This territory was made for me. Every race on the continent, rare species from the Chaos Sea. This was my dream since the day I transmigrated. 16 years I've been here, and I've only managed to collect a handful. This place was a gold mine. As for the difficulties Borg mentioned, please. In my past life, I always picked Hell mode on the first playthrough. Every time a game sent out a survey, I wrote, too easy, I live for challenge. And this was absolutely, definitely, 100% because I love challenges. Not because a certain lower body part was making decisions for the upper one. Definitely not. I'm not changing my mind, Uncle. This is my territory. Are you sure you don't want to think about it more? Borg tried again. He was honestly considering turning this place into an exile colony. And here I was picking it like it was prime real estate. Time to sell this with a proper speech. Uncle, by kingdom law, I shouldn't even have a title. If I also take prime fertile land, the nobles who already hate us will have even more ammunition. But if I take this wasteland, this territory everyone else considers worthless, and I actually develop it into something, then nobody can call me a waste of space anymore. This is my chance to prove myself. To wash away 16 years of being called useless, I paused for dramatic effect, then tapped the floor with my toe. Besides, Uncle, the things hidden down there aren't exactly something we want people to see. Only a remote place like this would let me keep those secrets buried. That last mysterious hint sealed the deal. Both Dad and Uncle Borg fell silent, exchanged a look, and nodded. My speech worked perfectly. Totally convinced them. Of course, everything I just said was complete nonsense meant to sound noble and strategic. Only I knew the real reason I picked that territory. It was absolutely the lower head controlling the upper head. But they don't need to know that. All right, your choice, Uncle Borg nodded. But I could tell what actually convinced him wasn't my speech about proving myself or avoiding jealousy. Those are things he'd solve with a slap. What really got his attention was my hint about the stuff hidden underground. But Uncle, I flashed my brightest smile. Whatever you're about to ask, no. Every time you smile like that, something bad happens. Borg eyed me like I was a wild animal. Last time I smiled at him like this, I sweet-talked him out of his favorite hero-grade weapon. Hee hee. Your innocent little nephew couldn't possibly have bad intentions. Your bad intentions could fill a library. Spit it out. Well, since my territory is so remote and all, I was hoping Uncle could grant me a few extra powers over the land. Borg sighed. But I could see him giving in already. He raised me himself. He knows my character. If I want something, might as well hand it over. And then he went way beyond what I expected. Full independent authority over the territory. You could build your own country on that land, and I wouldn't care. He started listing things off. The land's got nothing worth taxing anyway, so I'll give you 10,000 gold coins from the royal treasury. 2 years tax-free. 500 slaves. Pick whoever you want from the royal holdings. A 20-man guard unit selected from your father's forces. You choose who. And officially your army size follows Baron rules, but in practice there's no cap. If you can turn all 500 villagers into soldiers, go for it. I don't care how you bend the rules. Enough? If not, I'll add more. I was practically vibrating. I only came in hoping to get the right to manage commoners, and he just handed me an entire starter kingdom package. With all this, the possibilities were endless. Enough. More than enough. Gloria gets the same deal, Borg added, looking at his daughter. Royal family privilege, but only for your generation. Uncle, me too. Me too. Little Molly was reaching out from Mom's arms. She had no idea what any of this meant, but she saw me looking happy, so it must be good stuff. Yes, little Molly gets it too. Borg melted instantly. I looked over at my cousin Gloria, who'd been standing quietly this whole time. She also held a Baron title, but unlike mine, she'd earned hers. At 12 years old, she went to the frontier with a lance taller than herself and killed her way to that rank. People say she's got Dad's shadow in her. The next generation veto. Haven't you picked your territory yet? I asked her. She shook her head. Today is brother's coming-of-age ceremony. I should choose after you. Uncle Borg nodded approvingly at that. After growing up in a family where royals murdered each other for generations, seeing his kids and my dad's kids get along without fighting was probably his proudest achievement. Once it was her turn, Gloria barely glanced at the map before picking a yellow territory right next to mine. Didn't even hesitate. Borg chuckled. Still glued to your big brother. Even at this age. Brother is weak, she mumbled quietly. If I'm close by, I can protect him better. The two old men exchanged satisfied smiles. Their kids weren't repeating their bloody history. Mission accomplished. All right, Gloria and I need to go change clothes for tonight's banquet, Borg said, rolling up the map. Then he turned to me with a grin. Oh, and by Luo, there'll be plenty of eligible young ladies at the banquet tonight. If anyone catches your eye, let your uncle know. Your father's right. Plenty of earls and viscounts' sons your age already have kids running around. You don't even have a girlfriend. Time to get moving. I gave him the deadest dead fish eyes I could manage. You want to know why I don't have a girlfriend? Maybe because these two raised me to be a babysitter. My first wish after transmigrating was to build a massive harem. Grand ambitions. Big dreams. And what happened? Genevieve, Gloria, Molly. 3 little girls, all of whom I basically raised because I was mentally an adult from day one and got stuck with responsible big brother duty. These 3 took turns following me around in shifts. I haven't slept alone a single night since I got here, except when I was bedridden from illness. Where exactly was I supposed to find time for romance? When? Between changing diapers and reading bedtime stories? And now they're telling me to hurry up and find a woman. The audacity. The banquet wasn't held at our estate. For certain reasons, it was moved to a manor belonging to my cousin Genevieve. And even though it was supposed to be a family dinner, royal family dinners are never actually just family. Marquises, earls, viscounts, they all showed up personally or sent representatives. The banquet hall was packed. Most of them brought their kids along, using my coming-of-age ceremony as an excuse to parade their offspring in front of the king and queen. And then there were the women. Oh God, the women. Look, I might be useless as a fighter and a mage, but my status is still top tier. Not everyone is as dumb as Jonathan. The smart nobles know that Dad and the king are inseparable no matter what titles were officially dropped. They know I'm the king and queen's favorite nephew. They know the future Queen Genevieve grew up with me. As long as nothing goes catastrophically wrong, I'll be one of the most powerful nobles in the kingdom. So naturally, these families had zero problems offering up their daughters and nieces to warm my bed. And apparently, I'm attractive? I wouldn't say I'm built like a warrior, but I'm proportioned well enough. Years of being sick and taking medicine left me with this faint herbal scent and a pale complexion. Apparently the whole, beautiful sickly boy, look really does it for these noble ladies. They see me and their protective instincts go into overdrive. Basically, I have a natural-born pretty boy physique. Some of these noble women were already planning to keep me as a sugar baby, even if I wasn't a noble. And some of the people having these thoughts were men. I'm choosing not to think about that. Baron by Luo, it's been so long. You've grown into quite the young man. Earl Lester, lovely to see you too. You're looking dashing as ever. Ha ha ha, still such a charmer. This is my niece. You're about the same age. I'm sure you'll have lots to talk about. This happened about 12 times. My only escape strategy was keeping Molly glued to my side and using, sorry, my little sister needs the bathroom, as an excuse. We went to the bathroom 12 times tonight. If anyone was counting, they'd think the poor girl had a bladder condition. By Luo, come here. Just as I'd escaped the latest siege of noble women using bathroom excuse 12, Uncle Borg called me from the center of the hall. I handed Molly off to a maid, straightened my clothes, and walked up. Borg gave a speech. Went on for several minutes about family, pride, coming of age, the usual royal stuff. And as his uncle and his king, I will be presenting Baron by Luo with an extraordinarily precious gift that got everyone buzzing. The gifts tonight had already been insane. Rare treasures, magical beast mounts. The Marquis even gave me an entire manor with 200 to 300 slaves that generates 20 to 30 gold coins a year. The worst gift was a few premium-grade slaves. And now the king says he's got something even more valuable? But before Borg could reveal it, Dad walked up and tapped his shoulder. Excuse me, I believe I'm the father here. Shouldn't I go first? This was all planned in advance, of course. Build anticipation with the parent's gift, then let Borg push the excitement to its peak. Borg made a show of looking at the queen for approval. She gave a slight nod. He stepped back with an exaggerated bow. After you, brother. Mom walked up carrying 2 small gift boxes, jewelry-sized. Thank you, father, mother. I took them and opened the first one in front of everyone. Inside was a men's necklace with a black gemstone at its center. Under the light, tiny stars seemed to shimmer inside the stone, like it contained a piece of the night sky. This is an epic-grade accessory called Guardian of Stars, Mom explained softly. It generates a shield that can block at least 1 full power attack from a king-level mage. We hope it keeps you safe. The crowd went nuts. An epic-grade accessory is literally priceless. There's a story about some small country's king offering an entire city of 10,000 people for a single epic-grade magic item and getting turned down. And Mom just casually handed one to me. Everyone in the room was suddenly feeling a lot less proud of their gifts. I opened the second box, a ring with a pale blue gemstone. The entire room gasped, louder than when they heard about the necklace. Because this was a spatial storage item, a pocket dimension you could carry on your finger. These things are at minimum epic grade, and supposedly the entire White Dragon Kingdom owns fewer than 20 of them. Pulled this off the king of the Griffin Kingdom's finger when we conquered them, Dad said, flashing his teeth in a big grin. It's secondhand. Hope my good son doesn't mind. Secondhand. Secondhand. He called a spatial ring that kings would go to war over. Secondhand. You could hear the collective eye twitching across the room. Every noble in there was thinking, if you don't want it, give it to me. I'll take it 20th hand. I don't care. Thank you, father. Thank you, mother. I kept my composure. Honestly, they'd already told me what the gifts were beforehand. Hard to act surprised when you've been spoiled on the plot. Dad turned to Borg with a smug look. Well, your majesty? Still think your gift is the most precious? Borg nodded with supreme confidence. Absolutely. The two of them played off each other perfectly, ratcheting the crowd's anticipation higher and higher. Under everyone's watchful eyes, a small cart rolled up carrying 2 gift boxes. The queen took one and handed it to me. This is from your auntie. It's nothing extravagant, just a small token of my feelings. I took it with both hands and thanked her. She looked at me, and her eyes got a little watery. Mom and Dad were away most of my life, so she was basically the one who raised me. After that assassination attempt when I was little, my health was terrible for years. She told me once she genuinely wasn't sure I'd make it to adulthood. Thankfully, as I got older, the illnesses became less frequent and my body got stronger. But then she had to go and ruin the moment. You're not young anymore. It's time to think about marriage and children. At the very least, you should have a couple of lady companions by now. She stroked my face gently. Every noblewoman in the room perked up like sharks smelling blood. Meanwhile, I wanted to crawl into a hole. Auntie, I'm still a child. Here's the thing. I genuinely have zero interest in these noble ladies. The aristocratic culture here is, let's say, extremely open. Most of the women here, aside from the 11 and 12-year-olds dragged along by their families, already had multiple lovers and special friends. I know I'm a massive hypocrite, okay? I want my own harem, but I absolutely do not want to become part of someone else's. There's a difference. Everyone laughed at the "still a child" comment. They probably thought I was just being cute for the queen. If only they knew I was dead serious. The queen playfully swatted me and told me to open the gift already. Inside was a glove with several gemstones embedded in it, connected by thin chains. It looked unusual. I had this commissioned for you, she explained. Your magic talent is low, so I asked craftsmen to carve magic arrays into these gems. It lets you cast simple spells. The quality only barely reaches hero grade, they told me. The room erupted again. So the rumors about the queen coming from a hidden artisan family are true. It's only hero grade, he says. How many hero grade items does your family own? Reincarnation really is a skill. Why couldn't I have been born into royalty? Want me to help you reincarnate? Free of charge, brother. No fees between friends. Get lost. I ignored the chatter, slipped the glove on, and waved my hand. A firebird burst into existence and soared around the ceiling of the hall before fading away. Everyone clapped. Sure, it was just a mid-level spell that half the people in this room could cast in their sleep, but tonight was my night and nobody was going to spoil it. Thank you, Auntie. I love it. And I meant it. All the gifts today were carefully chosen, but this one was my favorite. Not being able to cast magic had always been my biggest regret. Even if this glove could only manage mid-level spells at best, that was more than I'd ever had. All right, my turn. Uncle Borg was pouting. He wanted me to save the tears of gratitude for his gift. I could practically see him fantasizing about me, crying with emotion while the nobles gasped in awe. The man lives for dramatic moments. He opened the box himself and pulled out a scroll made from some kind of leather. The room went dead silent. The earls and the marquis all frowned immediately. They recognized it, a territory scroll. Most of them had one of their own. But this shouldn't be here. I'm a baron. By centuries of law, barons don't get territory. I could see the gears turning in their heads. Either the king was about to raise my title, which would be pushing it, since my baron rank was already controversial, or he was about to break several hundred years of tradition. The smarter ones figured it out fast. A piece of land is valuable, sure, but compared to an epic-grade necklace and a spatial ring, it's not exactly the most precious gift. What would be priceless is rewriting the rules of the entire kingdom's nobility system. That would be historic. Borg unrolled the scroll. By my authority as king of the White Dragon Kingdom, I hereby grant Baron by Luo the territory known as the Sunset Lands. This land and all its people shall belong to Baron by Luo. Before anyone could object, Dad stepped forward with perfect timing. Your Majesty, this goes against the rules. Every noble in the room stared at this shameless man. You planned this with him. Everyone knows you two share the same underwear. Don't pretend to be the voice of reason now. But they also understood. This whole performance was choreographed from the start. My coming-of-age ceremony was just the stage. Right on cue, Borg delivered the real bombshell. Against the rules? Then let's change the rules. Starting today, territory grants for all noble ranks below Marquis will be expanded. The specific amounts will be discussed in Parliament tomorrow. I escaped. Finally, after Uncle Borg dropped the territory bombshell, all the nobles swarmed him like bees to honey, and I was no longer the center of attention. Perfect. I used my classic, sorry, feeling unwell, excuse and slipped out to the garden. Honestly, the sick part wasn't entirely fake. My face really was paler than usual. Those noble women were terrifying. They were practically ready to eat me alive. I'm a man and I got groped multiple times tonight. My face went white from pure fear, I swear. Well, little guy? Shouldn't you be inside? A voice came from the garden. I turned and saw a woman in a red dress, holding a plate of desserts. 2 small dragon horns on her head, a thick tail behind her. Aunt Dina, the scorched wing. The White Dragon Kingdom's one and only living dragon. Yeah, funny thing about that. The kingdom's called White Dragon, but our actual dragon is a red fire dragon. Nobody talks about the branding inconsistency. Too noisy in there. I've been hiding out here since the beginning, she said, shoving a pastry into her mouth. Your dad at least had the decency to send someone with snacks. So why'd you come out? Isn't this your party? The women were too aggressive. I fled. Perfect timing then. You're not the only escapee. She stepped aside, and there were Gloria and Genevieve, waving at me from a garden table. When did you two sneak out? I sat down next to them. Gloria got here almost the same time as me, Aunt Dina said, sipping red wine. Genevieve took forever. That dummy just arrived. I'm the future queen, Genevieve groaned, face down on the table with zero dignity. I have to stand there with father and greet every single noble. Getting out here at all was a miracle. She looked nothing like the composed princess from 10 minutes ago. If those nobles saw her now, their jaws would hit the floor. I couldn't stand the fake smiles either. Came straight out here with Aunt Dina, Gloria added, pouting. Where's Molly? That kid saw the food table and her legs stopped working. Left her in there. While we were chatting, Aunt Dina pulled something out of nowhere and plunked it on the table. A dragon egg. A massive, black dragon egg. Happy birthday, kid. Your dad wouldn't let me give this to you, stingy jerk. So I stole it. She said this like she'd swiped a cookie from the kitchen, not committed what was probably dragon-level grand theft. The 3 of us stared at the egg in stunned silence. Aunt Dina, you didn't lay this yourself, did you? Genevieve asked. The egg was pitch black, so there was no way to tell what kind of dragon it came from. As if, Dina shook her head. Your father can't get the job done. All these years, and not a single viable egg. Every egg I've laid, we just boiled and fed to Bai Luo for his health. Let me tell you, Vito's got plenty of creative moves in bed, but his actual performance is, Aunt Dina, we really don't need that level of detail. My face was burning. We did not need a review of my father's bedroom capabilities. The two girls beside me were already red as tomatoes. I raised these two to be modest and proper, unlike the other wild noble ladies. But now I was wondering if maybe I'd gone too far in the conservative direction. They couldn't even handle a hint of adult talk without looking like they'd spontaneously combust. Fine. Natalie gets 2 kids, and I get nothing. And I met Vito first. Dina pouted. Natalie being my mom, and the 2 kids being me and Molly. Can we please just talk about where this egg came from? Oh, right. Found it near the border of that 3-headed serpent kingdom, or whatever it's called. The mother was harassing our boarders, so Vito and I roasted her. This egg was all that was left. We were going to boil it for your health supplements too, but Vito said it was close to hatching. Wanted to save it for his heir to train as the next Dragon Knight. His heir is you, so why couldn't I just give it to you directly? But no, he had to hide it away like some secret treasure. Next heir, Genevieve and I both slowly turned to look at Gloria. If we're talking about inheriting Dad's title, that's obviously me. But if we're talking about his legacy as a warrior, the next Dragon Knight, that could only be Gloria. My body can barely handle existing, let alone bonding with a dragon. The magical feedback from a beast contract alone might kill me. But Gloria? She's the strongest fighter among us 4 siblings. At 12, she was charging into battle alongside Dad against giant beastkin on the frontier. And Dad's been not so subtly grooming her for bigger things. So this egg was probably meant for Gloria all along. So, Uncle Vito prepared this for me. Gloria looked at the egg. I was starting to feel awkward. Aunt Dina's big birthday gift to me was something she'd stolen from my cousin. What kind of situation is this? What do you mean for Gloria? Vito's heir is you. Dina pointed at me, clearly not getting it. Dad probably meant the heir to his war god title, not his noble title, I explained. Dina's dragon brain processed this for a moment. That's still you, though? I stared at her. Lady, I can't even carry groceries. I slapped Jonathan twice today and couldn't even leave a bruise. In what universe am I the war god's successor? How does a dragon's brain even work? So this egg was meant for Gloria? Well, this is awkward. After I spent a good while explaining, Aunt Dina finally understood the situation. Dad and Uncle were probably planning to give it to Gloria after my coming-of-age celebrations died down, I guessed. Can't have her stealing my spotlight during MY party. So what do we do now? Dina asked, munching on pastries. It's already here. Might as well give it to Gloria now. I missed her coming-of-age ceremony 2 months ago because I was sick. This can be my apology gift. But Gloria shook her head. I don't want it. I stared at her. You've always wanted to be a dragon knight like Dad. I do, she nodded firmly. But I want to tame a dragon with my own strength, like Uncle Vito did. Not through handed-down privilege. So I absolutely refused this egg. I turned to Genevieve for backup. Surely the sensible older sister would talk some sense into her. Genevieve nodded approvingly. She's right. Brother, didn't you once tell us that only things you earn yourself truly belong to you? Everything given by others can be taken away by others. I did say that. Years ago, when I was scamming candy out of my little sister's hands. That boomerang traveled through time and space just to smack me in the face. Why on earth was past me hustling children for sweets? I've lived 2 whole lives, and that's what I was doing. Well, have I ever told you the saying, refuse heaven's gift, and you'll face punishment? Nope. Both sisters said in unison, shaking their heads. I buried my face in my hands. My education of these 2 was either a masterpiece or a disaster, and I was increasingly leaning toward disaster. Aunt Dina looked around at us. So, none of you want it, and oh, Gloria was rock solid. She'd made up her mind to become the next Dragon Knight through pure effort. Dina looked at Genevieve. Headshake. She's a mage. A dragon wouldn't help her much. Then Dina looked at me. I covered my face. What would I do with a dragon? My body can't even handle a basic magical beast contract. The magical feedback from bonding would literally make me explode. And that's from a normal beast. A dragon is a divine tier creature. I'd pop like a balloon. Well, since nobody wants it. A line of drool appeared at the corner of Dina's mouth. Let's roast it. The baby dragon inside is almost fully formed by now. By Luo, didn't you once tell me about something called ballot? Let's see what dragon ballot tastes like. Gloria and Genevieve both nodded eagerly. They'd been eating Dina's unfertilized dragon eggs for years. That's basically how I stayed alive through my sickly childhood. and whatever I couldn't eat, these two gobbled up. It's probably why they're so strong at such a young age. If unfertilized eggs were that potent, a nearly hatched egg with a formed dragon inside, the nutritional value would be insane. Inside the egg, the baby dragon, now conscious enough to sense the outside world, started trembling violently. Wait. I grabbed the egg and shielded it behind me. This was a dragon egg. A nearly hatched dragon egg. Dragons are unbelievably rare on the continent. Over 90% live on Dragon Island in the Chaos Sea. The few that exist on the mainland almost never reproduce here, and when they do get pregnant, they fly back to Dragon Island to lay their eggs. This egg might be the only one found on the entire continent in centuries. If it hatches successfully, the White Dragon Kingdom would have a second Dragon Knight. We're already nearly unbeatable with just one. 2. We'd be unstoppable. And these 3 lunatics wanted to roast it? Dad and Uncle Borg would pass out from rage. You said you don't want it. Why should we keep it? Dina argued. Vito said it can only stay with a royal family member. Ask Molly. Maybe she wants it. Already asked. She said dragon eggs don't taste good, so she doesn't want one either. She thought I was asking if she wanted to eat it. Of course she did. So it's settled. We split it 4 ways. I'll save a piece for Vito to boost his stamina. Maybe then we can finally make a proper fertilized egg. Dragon flames started gathering in Dina's mouth. The egg was now shaking so hard it was practically bouncing off the table. Aunt Dina, the baby inside is conscious. It can hear you. You're talking about eating a member of your own species. Doesn't that bother you even a little? Why would it? Dragon Island rules say no killing each other, but outside Dragon Island, anything goes. Besides, newly formed magical beast babies are the tenderest. If we're not doing ballot, we can do roast suckling pig style. Wait, no. Roast suckling dragon. I slapped my own face. Why did I think a dragon would have moral principles? The flames in her mouth were getting bigger. The egg was having a full-on panic attack. Fine. I'll take it. I want it. Aunt Dina, put the fire away. The egg is mine. She snapped her jaws shut, swallowing the dragon fire back down with a puff of black smoke. You should have said so earlier. She exhaled a cloud of dark smoke casually. I looked at these 3 and finally understood. None of them grasped how important this egg was to the kingdom. Especially Gloria. She thinks dragons grow on trees. That she can just go find one to tame. Dad taming Aunt Dina was a once-in-a-millennium miracle. In all of recorded history, fewer than 5 people have ever successfully tamed an adult dragon. Dad only managed it because he happened to stumble across a young, weakened dragon at exactly the right time. I'm honestly starting to suspect the real reason the royal family doesn't have ancestral tombs isn't because they worried about grave robbers. It's because when Dad met Aunt Dina, our ancestors' graves literally caught fire from the sheer luck of it. Not just smoking, full-on blazing inferno. I'll keep the dragon egg, I said, glancing at Gloria who looked genuinely bummed about missing out on roast baby dragon. This girl seriously thinks she can just go find and tame a wild dragon on her own? There's barely any dragons left on the continent, and the ones that are around are proud, powerful adults that would squash you like a bug. Our family doesn't even have ancestral graves left to catch fire and give her that kind of miracle luck again. Whatever. I can't bond with the egg anyway. My body would literally explode from the magical feedback. I'll just hold on to it for her until she comes to her senses. I'll mention it to Dad and Uncle Borg later. I looked at the egg more closely. It was completely black and grimy. No idea what color it was supposed to be. What was Dad doing with this thing? Storing it in a coal mine. How are you going to carry something this big home? Genevieve asked. I looked at Aunt Dina. She brought it. She should carry it back. She puffed up her chest. Well, her very flat chest, proudly. Leave it to me. Dragons have our own storage magic. Unlike your useless spatial items, ours can store living things. I wanted to trust her. I really did. But the drool still hanging from the corner of her mouth made that impossible. On second thought, I'll tell Dad and Uncle Borg. They can send guards to transport it. And no. Dina shook her head so hard it looked like a rattle drum. I stole this behind Vito's back. If he finds out, he'll yell at me. Lady, what makes you think he won't find out regardless of what I do? That scolding is coming for you whether you like it or not. But her eyes were so determined that I gave up. Let her live in her little fantasy world where Dad somehow doesn't notice his dragon egg went missing. So how do we move it? Genevieve asked again. I'll come back for it later tonight. I sighed. just meant losing a bit of sleep. This dragon aunt of mine really knows how to create problems for me. All right, you've got all that stuff in your basement, Dina said casually. Moving an egg should be no problem with those things. Basement? What basement? Both Gloria and Genevieve turned to me with curious eyes. They'd practically grown up in our mansion and had never heard of any basement. Aunt Dina, I snapped, and immediately regretted raising my voice because it triggered a coughing fit. I pressed my handkerchief to my mouth and hacked away. Dina slapped her hand over her own mouth, realizing she'd said too much. Gloria gently patted my back. After the coughing stopped, I checked my handkerchief. No blood. Good, not that serious this time. Don't worry about how I'll move the egg. I have my methods. I changed the subject quickly. The stuff in the basement. I didn't want these two finding out about that yet. It goes against everything I taught them about morality growing up. If they saw what was down there, who knows what kind of shock it'd cause. Okay, brother. Do you want to go back inside? It's late autumn. It's getting cold out here. Genevieve held my hand. Mine was colder than hers. It's worse in there. Too noisy, too many people wanting to chat. I barely escaped. Then let me get you a blanket. Wait, send Gloria instead. If Genevieve walked in there, every noble would swarm the future queen to network. She'd be stuck for ages. But right now, Dad and Uncle Borg were in the middle of convincing the nobles to accept the territory expansion policy. If I pulled Genevieve away or let them know I was feeling sick, it'd distract from that whole operation. The policy needed to pass tonight. Doing it in Parliament tomorrow would be 10 times harder. Gloria was perfect for this. She already had a reputation for being cold and quiet. She could walk in, grab a blanket, and walk out without anyone bothering her. Even if someone tried, she'd just ignore them. Got it. Gloria switched on her Ice Queen face and disappeared inside. Genevieve squeezed my hand. How are you feeling? Not great, but not terrible. Probably the alcohol inside plus the cold wind out here. Same old problems acting up. Dina crouched beside me, looking guilty. I'm sorry, kiddo. If I hadn't blurted out that thing about the basement, you wouldn't have gotten worked up and started coughing. It's not your fault, Aunt Dina. My body was going to act up sooner or later regardless. I meant it. Her saying things without thinking wasn't exactly breaking news. I've been living with this body for 16 years now. It's even worse than my previous life, where I was just slightly malnourished. But hey, I got a second chance at life. What's there to complain about? 2 lifetimes of experience taught me to let go of a lot of things. Except one. I died a virgin in my last life. That was my biggest regret. Now I've been reborn in a world full of beautiful exotic species girls, and I am not leaving this life without building a harem of at least 10 or 20. Adults worry about whether their body can handle it. Me? I'm still a kid, so I want it all. After Gloria brought the blanket back, the banquet wrapped up soon after. I stood at the door seeing off all the nobles, autumn wind cutting through me, my face probably white as a ghost. Uncle, Auntie, we're heading home. I climbed into our warm carriage and practically melted into the cushions. Noble banquets are exhausting. And this was just a family dinner, with a fraction of the usual crowd. A formal banquet would have several times more people. I'd literally collapse. Tired? Mom asked gently. She set sleeping Molly aside, then pulled my head onto her lap. A little, Mother. I closed my eyes. I was definitely going to be sick for a few days after this. I sent a guard ahead to tell your little doctor to prepare medicine. It'll be ready when we get home. Mom sounded guilty. She always does. She and Dad spend most of their time on the frontier expanding the kingdom's borders, barely ever home. Missing the times I needed her most has always been her biggest regret. If not for tonight's policy reform requiring their presence, she might have missed my coming-of-age ceremony too. Thank you, Mother. I don't resent them. In my previous life, my parents abandoned me at an orphanage. I never knew what parental love felt like. This time around, I have parents who care about me, an uncle and aunt who treated me like their own, and little sisters who grew up following me everywhere. I'm already luckier than I ever dreamed. Besides, I understand that a strong nation means a good life for its people. The stronger the White Dragon Kingdom gets, the better my life gets. Tonight proved that. The gifts I received were worth nearly 200,000 gold coins total, not even counting what my parents and uncle gave me. Dad and Uncle Borg said the gifts at their coming-of-age ceremonies combined didn't add up to half of mine. The Marquis alone gave me a manor worth about 150,000 gold coins. Rumor has it he's planning to marry his youngest daughter to me. She's 10. Buddy, at least wait until she hits double digits in a few more. Oh wait, she is in double digits. Still way too young though. The carriage rocked me to sleep. When I woke up, we were home. Molly will sleep with me tonight. You rest up properly, Mom said, carrying my already unconscious little sister off to her room. Dad didn't come home. He stayed at the manor to hash out details for tomorrow's parliament session with Uncle Borg. Get some rest, kiddo. Aunt Dina waved and followed Mom inside. Once the adults were gone, a little beastkin girl with a thick tail dragging on the ground shuffled up to me carrying a steaming bowl of medicine. Young master, your medicine. The swishing sound of her tail on the floor was oddly soothing. I yawned. As I took the bowl, a blanket wrapped around me from behind. Tight, not letting a single breeze through. 2 pairs of worried eyes stared at me. I sighed. Girls, I'm just prone to getting sick. I'm not dying. Tanya, Yvonne, is all this really necessary? Tanya, a snake person beastkin, flicked her forked tongue. Very necessary. Every year around this time you end up bedridden. One year you didn't leave your bed the entire winter. I sipped the medicine. Temperature was perfect, but God, it was bitter. Couldn't chug it all at once. I remember you skipped hibernation that winter to take care of me, I said. She pouted. You say that like I've hibernated even once since you bought me. Snake people are considered the lowest quality beastkin slaves. No legs means they're slow, and they need to hibernate every winter. Skip hibernation and their growth gets stunted. Even if you force them to stay awake, their abilities plummet in cold weather. So nobody buys snake person slaves unless they have specific tastes. Some criminals even cut off their tails and sell them as magical beast parts, though that's heavily fined in the White Dragon Kingdom. Of course, since slaves are just property, the crime is technically selling counterfeit goods, not anything worse. I found Tanya when I was 10. She was curled up in a slave market cage, face covered in bruises. I felt bad and bought her for the price of a cup of sugar water. Later I discovered she had real talent for medicine, so I trained her as my personal doctor. 8 years without hibernation meant her body stayed small. She actually looked younger than me even though she's 2 years older. Young master, have a candy. Yvonne held out a rough brown sugar cube. I opened my mouth and let her pop it in. I've got maids, might as well use them. Yvonne is a half-elf. Some noble gave her to me as a gift when I was 6. She's about 4 years older than me and now serves as head maid of the household. Half-elves are uncommon in the capital and considered a premium slave breed. According to Yvonne herself, she's actually that noble's illegitimate daughter. But in this kingdom, nobody treats non-humans as real people. Even the elves, who have their own nation, get only slightly more respect. Slightly. For centuries, the White Dragon Kingdom has refused to recognize children born between humans and slaves as citizens. A slave's child is always a slave. The decent nobles at least keep their half-breed children as household servants. The scummy ones sell them to slave markets or brothels for quick cash. The noble who sent Yvonne to me? He was actually one of the decent ones. Relatively speaking. Did the 2 new little ones arrive? I asked, sucking on my sugar cube. Mr. Kerr brought them already, Yvonne reported. They've been bathed and given clean clothes. But they were in those slave transport cages for so long that they're completely exhausted. They're already asleep. Should I wake them? No, let them rest. I finished the last of my medicine in one grimacing gulp and set the bowl down. On my way out, I rubbed Tanya's head, which made her pout immediately. Young master, please stop patting my head. I've already stopped growing. More patting will make me even shorter. That's fine. I like them short. I grinned and headed to my room. Behind me, I could feel Yvonne watching me with that grateful expression she gets sometimes. She and Tanya both think I'm some kind of saint for treating them well. And honestly, compared to how other slaves live in this world, I guess I am. The average slave doesn't survive more than 6 years. Without me, Yvonne and Tanya would probably be rotting in some garbage dump or eaten by stray dogs by now. The fact that they're healthy, unwhipped, well-fed, sleeping in decent beds, and wearing proper clothes makes them practically royalty among slaves. A few years back, there was even a trend among nobles of eating non-human flesh and drinking slave blood. Slaves across the kingdom were terrified. When I heard about it, I dragged my sick body to Uncle Borg and threw the biggest tantrum of my life until he issued a ban on consuming non-humans outside of military operations. Yvonne and Tanya think I'm practically a saint. But, am I really? I locked my bedroom door behind me. Nobody is allowed in my room without permission. Yvonne has to negotiate with me in advance just to send someone in for cleaning. Molly can only enter when I'm present. One maid entered without asking once. I had her transferred to another household. That was the only slave ever sent away from the Duke's estate, and it sent a clear message. Even though I made sure the new owner treated her decently, the difference between living under me versus anyone else is night and day. Nobody broke the rule again after that. Tanya's the one exception. As my personal doctor, she can enter without permission when I'm actually sick. The reason for all this security? This room hides my biggest secret. I twisted a painting on the wall, adjusted a statue in the corner, turned another decorative piece. A barely audible click, and a staircase appeared in the floor. Underneath my room is a hidden bunker, originally built by some grandfather or great-grandfather of mine, back when the royal family was still murdering each other and you needed somewhere to hide. I found it by accident years ago and turned it into my secret laboratory. Down the stairs, through a corridor, I reached a heavy metal door. I shoved it open, nearly threw my back out doing it, because of course I did, and flipped a switch on the wall. Magic crystal lamps lit up the room. On two beds lay a man and a woman. Two bodies. Lifelike, but not alive. Ugh, that door is way too heavy. I'm half dead every time I open it. I collapsed into a chair, wheezing. This pathetic body of mine. These are my puppets. My greatest secret. They look completely real because they were made from real people, executed criminals. Their bones, skin, and some organs all came from healthy death row inmates. The techniques used to create them would get me burned at the stake if anyone found out. This is one of the most forbidden arts on the entire continent, puppet mastery. It evolved from necromancy. Dead mages used to control corpses, and eventually a specialized school branched off into puppet making. The methods were so horrifying and morally repugnant that they triggered a massive crusade. Necromancers, puppet masters, and every other evil organization were wiped out. I found the technique in the White Dragon Kingdom's secret forbidden library. Why does the kingdom have a forbidden library? Because some things may be unforgivable, but they're also very, very useful. I have no magic talent. My body can't handle physical training. If I want any power of my own, real power, not borrowed from shadow guards, I needed to go down some dark paths. I dug through every banned book looking for something I could actually use. Most forbidden techniques required strong magical talent, which ruled me out immediately. In the end, I found only two options: necromancy and puppet mastery. Both rely on soul strength rather than magical talent. And here's where my transmigration finally paid off. Having lived 2 lives, my soul is roughly 2.6 to 2.8 times stronger than a normal person's. Not sure why it's more than double. Maybe reincarnation comes with a bonus. Either way, it's like I was born to be a puppet master. Why not necromancy? Because it requires constant proximity to corpses and breathing in all that death energy and miasma would wreck my already terrible health. I'm looking for self-defense capabilities, not a speed run to the grave. I placed my hand on the male puppet's forehead. A red plum blossom mark appeared, and as I poured my soul into it, the puppet slowly opened its eyes. Who the hell keeps stripping my puppet's clothes off? I sat the puppet up from the bed. My real body grabbed a set of clothes from a nearby rack and handed them over. Was it honey? I think I did tell the guards to come maintain the puppets regularly. My real body and the puppet said this at the exact same time. Yeah, that's the creepy part of this whole thing. Once the puppet was dressed, I did some test movements. This body was specifically built for combat, reinforced bones, enhanced muscles. Way stronger than my pathetic real body. A casual punch from this thing broke the sound barrier with a sonic boom. I took a magic crystal from my pocket and slotted it into a special compartment on the puppet's chest. The crystal got absorbed completely within seconds. Once I'm on my own territory, I can finally use these puppets openly. My real body and the puppet said in unison again. Then I smacked my own forehead. I keep forgetting to speak separately. Need more practice. Here's how it works. My soul strength lets me fully control 2 puppets at once. I can also give simple commands to more, but those move like brain-dead robots. Anyone with half a brain would notice something's wrong. In a capital city full of sharp-eyed people, I can't risk even the fully controlled ones being spotted, let alone the dumb ones. If some devout religious fanatic figured out I was using forbidden puppet arts, Even my family connections might not save me. I've been practicing since I was 9, but training puppets are just wooden frames. These advanced ones have full organs, muscles, everything. Controlling them is infinitely harder. It's like trying to draw a circle with one hand and a square with the other. One moment of distraction and my real body mirrors whatever the puppet does. After making sure the puppet was functioning properly, I walked my real body back upstairs through the corridor, reset the hidden entrance, and collapsed into bed. When I build my own territory, the basement corridor is not going to be this long. And that stupid metal door. And the entrance is definitely not going in my bedroom. I can't even invite maids over to warm my bed because of this stupid setup. I mumbled as I drifted off to sleep. Meanwhile, the puppet, running on about a third of my soul, slipped out through the basement's other exit. This tunnel was way longer, leading all the way outside the capital. Probably the original escape route built by whichever paranoid ancestor made this bunker. The exit was disguised as a small woodcutter's cabin with lumber stacked outside. Inside, a plain-looking lumberjack lay on a bed. When my puppet made some noise climbing out, the man shot up instantly, axe in hand. "Who's there?" "It's me, my lord." He dropped to one knee, weapon planted in the dirt, fist over his chest. "Another shadow guard, stationed here to watch this exit. My guards know about the puppets. Can't really hide it from people who follow you 24/7. But I don't need to hide it. These guards are absolutely loyal to me. When they were assigned to me, their orders were clear. Even if the king himself gives a command that conflicts with mine, they follow mine. You could order them to assassinate their previous master, the current king, and they'd do it without hesitation. That's how much Uncle Borg trusts me. Out of all 4 royal children, I'm the only one with this caliber of guards. I need to pick up something big. Have the team find a safe route back to the mansion." "Yes, sir." He vanished instantly. The speed difference between him and my puppet was humbling. I really need to find ways to upgrade these things. Meanwhile, back at the manor, Dad and Uncle Borg were wrapping up their strategy session. "We've given Marquis Cedric a heads up," Dad said. "He shouldn't be dumb enough to oppose us tomorrow. If the Marquis agrees, the 3 earls will follow. They're benefiting too, doubling their territory population. Though they might complain it's not enough." Borg laughed. "Baby steps. It's early days for reform. Like Bailuo always says, take too big a step and you'll pull a muscle." Dad chuckled. "This means I'm giving up about 20% of my land to them." Borg sighed. "Why does that sting a little? Think of it as easing the burden for Genevieve when she takes over. You've got 100 royal stewards already, and it's still not enough. Our original plan keeps 50% for the crown anyway, and with how fast we're expanding, by the time Bailuo's grandchildren are around, we might control the entire continent. 50% of that will be bigger than the whole kingdom is now. By then the royal family should have more members too. Much easier to manage." Borg nodded. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. The reason the crown was drowning in land was because they'd murdered nearly every royal who could have helped manage it. And Dad, that absolute scoundrel, dropped his prince title specifically to avoid the paperwork. Borg was so furious he'd fought Dad over it. Lost, of course. "Speaking of more royals, maybe you should be working harder," Dad said with a grin. "Gloria's 14, and the Queen still hasn't gotten pregnant again. If you need help in that department, Big Brother can hunt down some magical beast meat to boost your stamina. Get out. I'll get my revenge eventually. I'm going to reinstate Bailuo and Molly as princes. I can't beat you, but your kids are fair game. They will share the suffering of managing this kingdom." Borg cackled like a villain. "Wow, you really are their loving uncle, aren't you?" While Dad and Uncle Borg were wrapping up their chat, Dad's eyes suddenly went sharp, and he looked toward the back garden. "Borg, did you invite anyone else tonight?" "No? Someone's here." Someone climbed over the garden wall. "Want to go take a look?" Dad smiled in a way that promised violence. He'd already mentally chopped the intruder into 8 pieces. "Sure, might as well enjoy some bedtime entertainment." Borg stood up. "Just don't fight inside. I like this manner." Yeah, stop nagging." Dad pulled his weapon from his storage item. Borg drew his sword too. He may not be able to beat Dad, but he's still one of the strongest people in the kingdom. They walked into the garden and spotted a suspicious figure sneaking around. "Hey, you, what are you doing?" Dad roared, his spear charged and ready to pin this person to the wall like a butterfly in a collection. That person, me, controlling my puppet, froze solid. Then I panicked. I threw both hands in the air and screamed, "Dad, Uncle, it's me. New character, don't attack. Don't attack." I was absolutely terrified. I know exactly how strong my father is. On the frontier, they call him the war god. The enemy nations call him the demon king. Even without his dragon, he could squash my puppet like stepping on an ant. And while my real body wouldn't be harmed if the puppet got destroyed, the soul just snaps back automatically. This puppet was expensive. All the materials came from the royal treasury. I spent ages building it. Getting it wrecked by my own dad would be the worst loss of my 2 lifetimes. Ooh, Dad looked confused. Since when did he have a son this big? Uncle Borg caught on first and pushed Dad's spear arm down. It's probably by Luo's puppet. Dad knew I'd been studying forbidden arts, but he's away so much he'd never actually seen one in action. Didn't click immediately. Hands flat on the ground. One wrong move, and I'm skewering you. Borg had guessed right, but wasn't taking chances. He is the king. Assassination attempts are a daily thing. I pressed both puppet hands to the dirt and squatted there obediently while they walked over to confirm. Once Borg verified it was really my puppet, he asked, "So, my dear nephew, what exactly are you doing here?" I looked awkwardly at the dragon egg sitting nearby. The girls and I had hidden it in the garden earlier, and I just dug it out. Dad spotted the egg, almost as tall as the puppet, and his eye twitched. "Dina did this?" He didn't even need to ask. He just knew. I nodded. "Sorry, Aunt Dina. I'm not selling you out on purpose. Your reputation is just too distinctive, and Dad is too sharp." "That idiot dragon." Dad shook his head. "Tell me everything." So I explained the whole saga. When I got to Gloria's heroic declaration about taming a dragon through her own strength, Uncle Borg nodded proudly. Then his pride faded into concern about how unrealistic that actually was. "That girl really thinks taming a dragon is easy?" I almost died trying to contract with Dina. And that stupid dragon, she got injured getting this egg. Her wounds still aren't fully healed, and she wanted to roast it. Aunt Dina is injured? I was genuinely surprised. She'd seemed totally fine all evening. The mother was an adult dragon. Dina's strong, but she's still technically a young dragon. Even with army support, she took serious hits. She's mostly recovered now. Dragon healing is incredible. Probably another month or 2 until she's fully back. Dad looked at Borg. "So what do we do with this egg?" "Let Luo keep it, like he suggested. Both our girls are stubborn. Once they say no, that's final. He can hold on to it until Gloria grows up and comes to her senses. I'm worried the baby dragon might hurt Luo when it hatches. Even a newborn dragon is still a dragon, and with his body, father, I'll be fine," my puppet said. "Don't forget, I'm the person magical beasts love the most. This is actually my one golden finger. My affinity with magical beasts is off the charts. Even the wildest, most violent warhorses turn into gentle puppies around me and let me ride them. We discovered this when I was 2. Dad and Uncle Borg thought I'd become an amazing knight someday. But then my health got worse, and after the assassination at age 5, that dream died completely. Now the only use for this ability is the occasional bird bringing me flowers. Real useful, thanks. But when I mentioned it, the dragon egg trembled and leaned slightly toward me. Dragons are one of the few magical beasts that can see souls. So even though my puppet looks nothing like my real body, the baby dragon inside could tell it was me. Dad finally relented. "Fine, do what you want." He paused. "But hearing you call me father with that face is really weird." I got sick. Of course I got sick. Drinking alcohol, sitting in a cold garden in late autumn. My body was practically begging for an excuse to shut down. And this time it hit hard. "Young master." Tanya slithered in with her snake tail carrying a bowl of medicine. "What's with the sad face?" I forced myself upright and gave her a smile. "Nothing. Drink your medicine." She was frowning, clearly worried. Every winter when the temperature drops, I fall apart. This time with the alcohol and cold wind combo, I was done for. These episodes usually last a month or 2, and winter had officially started. "Come on, I've been getting sick my whole life." No need for the funeral expression. I downed the medicine in one go and pinched her little cheek. "Young master doesn't take care of himself at all. The princesses told me everything. You were out in the freezing garden instead of staying in the warm hall. And you were drinking." She was getting angrier with every word, her little cheeks puffing up. "I just wanted some peace and quiet. If you keep this up, you might as well just send me away. Then I won't have to worry about whether you're alive or dead every single day." Her eyes were getting misty. Don't say things like that. Come here, let me squish those cheeks. I reached for her face again. Snake people have the smoothest, softest skin. Tanya's face especially. Small, squishy, absolutely delightful. Hee hee. Stay in my room today. It's too cold outside for you. Tanya's a snake person. She's terrified of cold weather. If it weren't for worrying about me, she'd already be hibernating. My room has a temperature-maintaining magic array, so it stays warm. Much better for her than anywhere else in the house. She didn't argue. Someone needed to watch over me, and she's the only person allowed in my room without advance notice. She set the bowl aside and coiled her tail into a comfortable position by my bed. Your parents and both ladies left already. This morning the princesses took Miss Molly too. You were asleep, so they asked us to pass along the message. I nodded. Makes sense. Winter is when things get dangerous on the borders. Every year when it gets cold, the large beastkin, nomadic tribes, and even desperate small beastkin cross the border to raid for food and supplies. The large beastkin are the worst. They're nothing like Tanya and the cute small beastkin with their pretty animal ears and tails. Large beastkin are genuinely terrifying, fanged, monstrous faces, one of humanity's greatest enemies. Worse than demons or magical beasts in some ways. Their breeding rate is insane. One litter produces several offspring, survival rates are high, and within 6 months a newborn can hold a weapon. Within a year they're battle-ready soldiers. Because of that endless supply of troops, the White Dragon Kingdom used to be completely helpless during winter. Couldn't even defend the border, let alone expand. They'd just let the large beastkin raid every year and pick up the pieces afterward. These past 16 years, thanks to Dad, the kingdom finally got its act together. We can hold the border now and even push back occasionally. But that means Dad, Mom, and Aunt Dina are almost never home. After I turned 5, I can count their visits on one hand. The longest stay was the year Molly was born. With them gone, there's nobody to watch Molly during my sick spells, so Uncle Borg and the Queen take her to the palace. They've offered to bring me too, but moving me in this condition might make things worse, so I just stay in the mansion. Young master better get well soon, Tanya said, letting me hold her small hand. If you died, we'd probably have to be buried with you. Wouldn't that be nice? Even in the afterlife, you'd still be taking care of me. Taking care of you is fine, but I haven't finished growing yet. I want to see what I'll look like as an adult. She glanced down at her very flat chest. Small is cute too, I said with a grin. Young master is always full of sweet lies. She looked at me with those big eyes. I coughed a couple times. Tanya, how are the capital's residents doing this winter? The crops in this world are similar to my previous worlds. Actually, maybe because of ambient magic, yields are slightly higher than what you'd get naturally back on Earth. Of course, they can't compare to the scientifically bred varieties from my old world. But farming techniques here are incredibly primitive. Even in the relatively wealthy White Dragon Kingdom, commoners and lower-class citizens freeze and starve to death every winter. Slaves have it even worse. Winter is peak dying season. After every winter, slave prices jump 10 to 20% because so many die off. I don't know about other places, but the capital didn't have many starvation deaths this year, Tanya said softly. Sounds like the rice strain we developed 2 years ago is finally being used around the capital. I let out a relieved breath. I'm a transmigrator. I can't just sit around like the nobles here and watch ordinary people starve to death without caring. So I brought over the theories of a certain saint from my previous world. I don't have deep knowledge of hybrid rice, the 3-line and 2-line systems, but I picked up the basics in my past life. I knew what male sterile lines, maintainer lines, and restorer lines were. Enough to point researchers in the right direction. My body obviously can't do field work, but I'm one of the most privileged people in this kingdom. When I was 6, I batted my eyes at Uncle Borg, and he mobilized the entire nation's resources for the research. This world has magic. Combined with my scraps of knowledge from short videos in my previous life, they actually pulled it off. And since the native rice varieties here were already decent quality, the yields were pretty good. Once it's fully spread across the kingdom, the number of people starving to death will drop dramatically. Even commoners, lower-class citizens, and slaves might actually eat full meals. Of all the things I've accomplished since arriving in this world, this is what I'm most proud of. Bringing that saint's theory to life here, on this different world, laying the foundation for a future without famine. Honestly, If I died right now, I'd be okay with it. That one achievement alone made this second life worth living. Make sure to pack some of those rice seeds when we leave. I heard the climate there is good for them, I said, propped up in bed. Young master, you're still planning to go to your territory? Tanya looked worried. Why wouldn't I? But your body. My body's already like this. If I spend my remaining days stuck in the capital, I'll die with regrets. Don't say die. That's bad luck. She spat 3 times for good measure. You're the one who brought it up first. Dot. She had no comeback. All right, I'm going to nap. Stay in this room. If anyone asks, tell them I said so. I burrowed back under the covers. Ugh, without Molly here, my arms feel empty. Hey, Tanya, want to come warm the bed for me? She looked tempted for a second, but shook her head. Snake people run too cold. I'll go get little Fitz instead. She's a fox person. Her tail is all fluffy and warm. Fitz was the cute little slave that convoy leader's daughter Beth had wanted to buy. The one I had my guard snatch up first to teach that little girl about how cruel the world can be. She'd been living with us for about 2 months now. Sure, that works. I nodded happily. Besides, a few days ago, one of the maids accidentally spilled water in my room, and it froze over the lowest spot on the floor, which happened to be right where some of the hidden entrance mechanisms were. So no risk of anyone stumbling onto my secret basement. Totally safe to have visitors. And look, I'm a nobleman. Having a little maid warm my bed is completely normal and acceptable behavior in this world. Nothing weird about it at all. Tanya tucked me in and headed out. The moment her snake tail hit the freezing floor outside my room, her whole body shuddered violently. Winter really is a snake person's worst nightmare. I made a mental note to look into having large-scale temperature magic installed throughout the whole mansion. I can't change the fate of every slave in the world, but improving life for my own little maids is definitely within my power. I drifted off thinking about that. Sometime later, something warm crawled into my arms. I gave it a couple squeezes, nice and soft, and used it as a body pillow. Slept like a baby. When I woke up, it was evening. Young master, time for medicine. Tanya was back with another steaming bowl. Haven't slept that well in ages. I tried to sit up, but the little creature in my arms had me in a death grip. Those ears are really long. Wait, Fitz has long ears too, but not this long. I looked down carefully. This wasn't Fitz. This was Ina, the little rabbit beastkin who'd slipped through my guard's legs that day and hid behind me. She was curled up tight against my waist, her tall rabbit ears resting flat against my chest. Adorable porcelain doll face, the type that would look devastatingly cute if she cried. Still a bit thin. 2 months wasn't enough to fatten her up properly yet. I glanced at her flat chest and thought back to the soft thing I'd squeezed earlier. Must have been her arm. Or her cheek. Definitely one of those totally innocent body parts. Nothing else to squeeze anyway. Fitz had a bit of a cough, so I didn't dare bring her, Tanya explained. Didn't want her passing anything to you. She's sick? Did you check on her? Is it serious? I asked immediately. Winter kills more slaves than anything else. Even though I've done my best to improve living conditions for my maids, I can't guarantee nothing will go wrong. 16 years in this world, and I still can't stand watching these cute little ones suffer. Tanya smiled softly. Fitz is fine. Just caught a small chill last night. She's much better after medicine. As we talked, little Ina slowly woke up. Her slightly damp eyes focused on my face. First, she blushed bright red. Then her entire body went stiff as a board. Moss. Young master, she whispered. Slaves normally say, master, but I don't like that word, so all my maids call me, young master, instead. Little Ina's been here 2 months, and still can't break the old habit. And right now, this bunny-eared little girl was lying in my arms, looking up at me with those shy, nervous eyes, calling me, young master, in that tiny trembling voice, and I was experiencing peak happiness. But it could be better. Little Ina, try calling me big brother. Sure, Molly and Gloria and Genevieve all call me brother too. But they're my actual sisters and cousin. That's family obligation. It doesn't hit the same. Ina was different. Under kingdom law, a slave belongs entirely to their owner. The dynamic is completely different. The feeling is completely different. Ina didn't understand what I was after, but she's the obedient type who does whatever she's told. So in that tiny, soft, cotton candy voice, she said, Big brother. That sound entered my ears, and I swear my soul ascended to heaven. Looking at this little bunny girl nestled in my arms, I thought to myself, I could die right now and have zero regrets. Little girls are truly the greatest treasure this world has to offer. And no, I am not a lolicon. I am absolutely, categorically, 100% not a lolicon. I'm not. Young master, your medicine is getting cold. Tanya interrupted my transcendent moment. Coming. I reluctantly sat up and took the bowl. Someday I'm going to get Tanya to curl up in my arms and call me Big Brother too. Actually, forget someday. I'm going to make every maid in this house do it. All of them. One by one. Otherwise, what was the point of being reborn? My illness lasted another month, but I actually recovered faster than usual this time. Maybe my body's getting a tiny bit stronger with age. I was back on my feet a full month before spring arrived. I hung around the capital for 2 more months after that, waiting for the snow to melt before preparing to head to my territory. Why do you insist on going to such a remote place? Just send a steward. Your health is terrible. The queen was glaring daggers. Not at me, but at Uncle Borg. Borg, Auntie, don't blame Uncle. This was my decision. I can't own a territory and not manage it myself. Besides, this is my chance to prove myself. The part in parentheses, collecting every species of exotic girl, I kept to myself. What do you mean you can't? Your father, the Marquis, and all 3 earls have other people managing their territories. And prove yourself? You're royalty. Even without your father's prince title, you have royal blood. Who would dare look down on you? The queen was genuinely upset. She'd raised me since I was a baby. I was basically her son in everything but blood. All she wanted was to see me grow up healthy, get married, have kids. But my body's been fragile since birth, and a long, bumpy journey to some remote frontier. Anything could happen. Her worst nightmare was getting news someday that I'd died out there. This was all Borg's fault, she decided. If he hadn't pushed his stupid territory expansion reform, I'd never be leaving. And don't give her that, he chose it himself. Nonsense. What 16-year-old would pick the most remote, undeveloped wasteland available? Obviously, Borg was too embarrassed to give his nephew prime land because of how it'd look, so he threw in terrible options and let me walk into the trap. And even if I did choose it myself, why did those 2 idiots, one my father, one my uncle, include such a dangerous place on the list? Just assign me something near the capital like they did for Genevieve. There's tons of royal land around the capital. It used to belong to all those princes they murdered. Any way you sliced it, this was Borg and Dad's fault. The queen's phoenix-sharp eyes burned holes through Borg. A few months ago, he mentioned wanting to expand the royal family. Dream on. He's sleeping in his study tonight. And tomorrow night. And the whole month after that. Don't even think about the bedroom. Borg. Auntie, please don't worry. You said it yourself. I'm a royal, so I should set a good example. The Sunset Lands aren't as dangerous as you think. The territory is actually huge because there are so few people. It's on the border, so maybe I can even help expand the kingdom a little. Plus, Gloria's territory is right next to mine. She can help if anything goes wrong. Honestly, I know my own body. Think of it like a college student's constitution from my past life, but upgraded. More fragile, yet somehow harder to actually kill. I've danced on death's doorstep so many times that if I had even a drop of scion blood, I'd be strong enough to beat Dad by now. And supposedly the Sunset Lands have warmer temperatures, which might actually be good for my health. But the real reason? All those exotic species girls waiting for me. I needed to create a real-life encyclopedia of every non-human beauty on this continent. Oh, you stubborn child. The queen's eyes welled up at how, mature and selfless, I was being, willing to sacrifice comfort for the royal family's reputation. To her, I was a political pawn who still thought about others first. That made Borg even more of a villain in her eyes. She glared at him a 3rd time. Murder eyes. 1,000 cuts and feed to dog's eyes. Borg, fine, I can't stop you. You're more stubborn than both girls combined. She grabbed my hands. Take your doctors with you, especially the 10 court physicians I'm sending. I know you have your little snake doctor, but she's a slave. I don't fully trust her skills. I've also prepared 2 whole wagons of medicinal herbs. Use them. And also, she went on and on with instructions. I smiled and nodded through all of it. And Gloria, your territory is close to your brother's. Look after him. The queen turned to my cousin. Gloria, am I the biological child here, or is he? Your brother's health is poor, and he always pretends everything is fine in his letters. Visit him regularly and report his real condition to me immediately. Understood? Yes, mother. I'll inspect brother's health every month, Gloria saluted. By Luo, I'll take care of Molly. Don't worry about her. The queen gestured to Molly, who was crying rivers beside her. Brother, please don't go. Molly grabbed my sleeve, tears streaming. I crouched down and wiped her face. Be a good girl and stay in the capital for school. When you're a little bigger, I'll bring you to my territory. Deal? I didn't know exactly what conditions were like in the Sunset Lands yet. Too risky to bring a little kid. Plus, unlike me, Molly has incredible magic talent, almost as good as Mom's. She needed to stay for proper education in magic and etiquette. Molly, be good. When summer comes, big sister will take you to visit brother, okay? Genevieve chimed in. Really? Molly sniffled. Really? When has big sister ever lied to you? Once the women were done, Uncle Borg finally got a word in. Be careful out there. The Sunset Lands have garrisons to the northeast and southeast, both led by viscounts who used to serve under your father. I've already briefed them. If you need anything, go to them directly. Or just write to us. And take care of your health, you hear me? Yeah, Uncle. You're being a bit naggy. Why, you little? What were you about to say? The Queen's death glare swiveled to Borg before he could finish. Nothing. I said nothing. Uncle, Auntie, sisters, we're off. I waved goodbye and climbed into the carriage. Gloria hopped in after me. Her territory borders mine, so we were traveling together. Plus, the Queen ordered her to personally deliver me to my territory before heading to her own. Basically, I had a royal escort/babysitter. Are we heading straight out? Gloria asked. No. I need to stop home first to pick up the maids. The convoy had departed from the palace, and I'd only brought Tanya with me. Yvonne, Fitz, and the others were still at the mansion waiting. I was only taking 4 maids with me, but there were over 20 still at home who needed arrangements. Couldn't just leave them hanging. Gloria nodded. She didn't question why I'd prepared comfortable carriages specifically for my maids instead of making them walk behind the convoy in chains like every other noble does with their slaves. She just accepts whatever I do. Good cousin. Back at the mansion, Yvonne was waiting with Fitz and Ina, all packed and ready. The other maids stood around looking nervous about their futures. Relax, he's not going to throw you out. Someone still needs to look after the mansion. That was Zhang Wei, my male puppet. Since I was about to leave the capital, I'd finally brought both puppets out into the open and given them official identities. I'd named the male puppet after my previous life's name. A little memorial to old me. Mr. Zhang Wei, please don't talk about our young master like he's someone who'd be swayed by pretty faces. He's not that kind of person, one brave little maid snapped back at him. Lady, I was literally stating facts about myself and got scolded for it. Zhang Wei's forehead bore the plum blossom mark of the ducal household, marking him as family property. That brand actually gave the maid confidence to talk back. We're all the same master's slaves, and the master said everyone's equal under this roof. All right, Zhang Wei. Stop talking and wait for the young master. That was Hei Qi, my female puppet, stepping in to defuse things. Both puppets are me. So yes, this was entirely a one-man show where I argued with myself and then broke up my own argument. But the maids didn't know that. They just thought Hei Qi was a kind older sister standing up for them. Her approval ratings shot up instantly. I shut Zhang Wei's mouth after that. Controlling 3 bodies at once was still tricky, and I was worried about slipping up and having 2 of them say the same thing. About the puppets' appearances, I designed Hei Qi exactly to my tastes. Long silver-white hair, legs that go on forever, generous curves up top, and the most important part, snow-white fox ears and a fluffy tail. The plum blossom brand on her face actually made her look alluring. I went all out. Zhang Wei. I just slapped my old face on him and added 8-pack abs. Done. Same energy as every character creation game I've ever played. Spend 3 hours perfecting the female character. Give the male character a goblin face and call it a day. I only didn't make Zhang Wei an actual goblin because I was afraid patrol knights would mistake him for a real one and kill him on sight. The convoy pulled up to the mansion. I got out and signaled the 3 maids to board their carriage. Hei Qi joined the girls' carriage with Tanya. Zhang Wei got his own. Then I faced my remaining 20-plus maids. They were all small beastkin, staring at me with anxious eyes. You're all non-humans. I'd love to set you free, but honestly, you'd just get captured again out there. The truth hurt, but it was the truth. Non-humans have 0 freedom in human empires. That's been the reality for over 1,000 years, and I can't change it from here. You can stay at the mansion or move to my estate outside the city. Either way, you'll be safe, young master. Can we come with you? The brave little maid who'd argued with Zhang Wei spoke up timidly. I smiled but shook my head. I haven't even seen my new territory yet. I don't know what conditions are like. There might not be anywhere for you to stay. We don't need much. Just a grass shed is enough. We just want to be near you. I looked at their faces. Half of them I'd bought from slave markets. The other half were gifts from various nobles over the years. Every single one of them had lived miserable lives before coming here. In my household, they learned what it felt like to eat until they were full for the first time. They learned that making mistakes didn't mean getting whipped. They learned that getting sick didn't mean being thrown outside to die. So of course they wanted to follow me. Even if my territory was a burning hellscape, they'd rather be there with me than anywhere else without me. Listen, I said gently. Stay here for now. Once I've got things set up and stable in my territory, I'll come back for you. Okay. They all lowered their heads, clearly unhappy but obedient. Ho-Hot, I called out. The little maid who'd spoken up looked at me. That's her name, Ho-Hot. She didn't have one before. I named her myself during one of my moments of questionable humor. Yvonne's coming with me, so you're the new head maid and estate manager. Take care of your sisters here and at the manor outside the city. That manor generates a few dozen gold coins a year for me. Very important job. Got it. They all answered together. I'm leaving half my shadow guards here. If anyone messes with you, have them handle it. Tell them I said so. You're the Duke's household maids. Nobody gets to touch you. And don't worry about causing me trouble. I'm one of the most important people in this kingdom. If anyone has a problem, they can take it up with the king himself. After a few more reassuring words, I climbed into the carriage under their tearful gazes, and we finally set off for the Sunset Lands. Phew, finally sorted everything out. I collapsed onto the carriage sofa. Brother is always so kind to those maids, Gloria said. I didn't deny it. I'm a transmigrator from a world where everyone is supposed to be equal. I can't fully accept how this world treats slaves and non-humans as less than dirt. Where I come from, all our ethnic groups live together. Mongols could proudly claim the same glorious history as Han Chinese. That kind of upbringing makes it hard to watch slave owners treat people like disposable tools. But I'm not delusional. I haven't made any grand moves. I just treat the people under my roof better. Trying to overthrow a system that's been in place for 1,000 years when you have no real power? That's not dreaming, that's suicide. Even humans are divided into rigid social classes here, and I'm one of the people benefiting from it. So for now, this is all I can do. But with my own territory, the possibilities were opening up. Collecting every species of exotic girl was definitely not my only reason for going. If that's all I wanted, I could just ask Uncle Borg, and by tomorrow the entire mansion would be stuffed wall to wall with every type of non-human beauty on the continent. The most powerful human empire can do pretty much anything. The real reason I wanted my own land was to create a test zone, to see if non-humans could live like normal people, safely, with dignity. That's why I'd pushed Borg for full independent authority over my territory. Not because I wanted to build my own country or start a rebellion. I just needed a place where I could try things that would get me lynched anywhere else. Brother, we're about to take off. Gloria grabbed my hand. Already, I gripped the armrest and had Hei Chi warn the maids in the other carriages. The horses in front of our carriage spread wings. The coachmen all pulled out staffs and cast levitation spells on the carriages. The entire convoy lifted off the ground and climbed into the sky. This was the Royal Dragon Horse Convoy. The horses had dragon bloodline, dragon-winged horses. The blood definitely came from Aunt Dina, though nobody says that out loud. Each coachman was a mid-level mage. To get me to my territory safely, Uncle Borg had sent half the kingdom's entire fleet, 15 dragon horse carriages, plus 30 wyvern riders as escort. Talk about overkill. But that's how much they care. Pretty extravagant, I said, looking out the window. The mages had put up protective barriers around each carriage, so there was no turbulence. Felt just like riding an airplane from my previous life. This world's version of a private jet. You didn't recognize the convoy? Gloria asked. Nope. I barely leave the house. This is actually my first time in one. Father only uses these for official royal tours across the kingdom. I was shocked when I saw half of them here for us. We chatted to pass the time as clouds drifted by outside. Brother, you have so many maids, but you're only bringing these few. I don't know what conditions are like there yet. No point dragging them into uncertainty. It can't be that bad. You're still royalty. Even on the frontier, it won't be miserable. You never know. DEADLIEST the border. Honestly, Mother was right. You didn't need to go personally. Just hire a lord or send a steward. No, Gloria. I don't think anyone's noticed something important. I put on my serious strategic face. What? The sunset lands border the Beastkin's endless mountains and the Elves' verdant forest. Most importantly, it's only a few dozen miles from the Chaos Sea. If we ever want to develop maritime routes, that's a prime location for a port. A place like that needs to stay in royal hands. Is that really why? Of course. And it has nothing to do with you hearing there are lots of exotic non-human girls there. Your eyes were literally glowing when Uncle mentioned it. Damn. She grew up with me. She knows me too well. Absolutely not. Your brother is a man of virtue and principle. Brother is a man of virtue and principle. Her tone said she didn't believe a single word. After several days of flying, the convoy finally touched down in the sunset lands. I saw Gloria off, then turned around to face my welcoming committee. 40-something people were kneeling in front of me. Most were my shadow guards and soldiers who'd arrived ahead of me. Let me explain my little army. Uncle Borg said I could pick 20 guards from Dad's forces. So I got clever. I chose 10 knights and 10 mages instead. See, normally knights and mages are counted separately from regular troops. For example, Dad's a duke with 5 cities of 100,000 people each. He gets a 10,000-man army plus 1,000 knights and 1,000 mages on top of that. Different budget. After the reform, barons could have 20 guards plus less than 10 knights and mages combined. But I picked 10 knights and 10 mages, calling them my guards. Then before we left, I stripped them of their mounts and staffs. A knight without a horse isn't really a knight, I argued. A mage without a staff isn't really a mage, so technically they're just guards. Then I bought their original equipment back from Dad at a discount and shipped it all here separately. The big nobles definitely noticed this loophole abuse. But what were they going to do? I'm the king's favorite nephew. They just looked the other way. On top of those 20, I had 20 shadow guards. The royal family has fewer than 200 of these elite operatives total, and Uncle Borg gave me 30. I left 10 in the capital, brought 20 here. So 40 soldiers total. My entire military. But there was also one person I didn't recognize, a young man kneeling with the rest. Who are you? I asked. My Lord Baron, I am your person. Please don't phrase it like that. I don't swing that way. Young master, this is the village chief of Sunset Village, a shadow guard explained before things got weirder. Village chief? I looked at the guy more carefully. Yes, my lord. I am indeed the village chief. He lifted his head with a nervous, desperate to please smile that honestly looked painful. Name? Bard, my lord. Bard was young but had been elected by the villagers. He'd grown up here, son of the previous chief who died a few years back fighting off a magical beast invasion. Got his throat pierced. The grateful villagers chose the underage Bard as successor, and he'd been working himself to the bone ever since. Being a border village, they dealt with constant raids from other races and magical beasts. Nobody could focus on farming properly. Their harvest barely fed everyone, but they still had to pay taxes. Most villagers were lower-class citizens with minimal tax obligations. But when your village produces almost nothing, even minimal is crushing. So every year during the quiet season, Bard gathered the few commoners in the village and walked 4 or 5 days to the nearest town to do odd jobs. The pittance they earned covered taxes and kept everyone from being enslaved for non-payment. Then this winter, while Bard was cutting firewood in the mountains during a snowstorm, a bunch of people showed up and announced this land now belonged to some baron by Luo. They started building a manor before he could even process it. Later, slaves arrived and were housed in the village. Someone told him the baron was kind and had grain shipped in from far away so the villagers wouldn't have to feed the slaves out of their own pockets. It was apparently the first winter the village hadn't lost many people. But, kind or not, a noble is still a noble. Bard's villagers were lower-class citizens, practically slaves in a noble's eyes. Kill them and dump them in the mountains, nobody bats an eye. So Bard came here today gambling his life on making a good first impression, hoping to secure slightly better treatment for his people. He'd even left his little sister with a trusted friend beforehand. If he didn't come back alive, his friend would take her and flee into the mountains. Living as savages was better than being dead. The poor guy was shaking all over. He couldn't tell expensive fabric from cheap cloth, but he could see that I looked fancier than the Viscount he'd once glimpsed from a distance while doing odd jobs. Even my maids were prettier clothes than anything he'd ever seen. Speaking of which, keep staring at her, and I'll pluck your eyes out. I noticed his gaze kept drifting toward Yvonne. That annoyed me. I'm deeply sorry, my lord. He smashed his forehead into the dirt. Lucky the ground was soft mud, or he'd have cracked his skull. I've never seen such fine clothing as what your maid is wearing. I couldn't help looking. Please forgive me. Her clothes are fine, so why aren't you looking at mine? I kept my cold expression. Yeah, I'm warm and gentle. To MY people. To outsiders? I'm the noble Baron by Luo of the White Dragon royal family. This guy looked at me once. Then his eyes wandered straight to Yvonne. I'm a possessive person, okay? That bugged me. And my lord, I wouldn't dare, Bard stammered, shaking like a leaf. Poor guy was probably mentally slapping himself. He came here hoping to make a good impression, and instead he'd been caught eyeing my maid's outfit. He was probably already writing his farewell letter to his sister in his head. I decided he might actually be telling the truth, though. His eyes had been focused on the hem of Yvonne's dress, not on other areas. What were you thinking when you looked at her? Don't think about it. Just say what was in your head. Zhang Wei barked at him before I could ask nicely. That's his job. Play the scary guy so I can stay the kind master. Works perfectly since I'm controlling him anyway. I was thinking about when I could buy my sister a dress like that. Bard blurted out, trembling worse than ever. Okay, that's probably genuine. Get up. Don't do it again. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for a year. Thank you, my lord. I told everyone to head to the Baron's manor first, then called Bard over. I wanted to see the village before settling in. Yvonne protested about my safety, but I pointed out I had shadow guards and Zhang Wei. Tanya, however, flat out refused to leave my side. Your body is terrible and you never take care of yourself. I'm coming. No room for negotiation. Fine. I let her tag along. Bard and I headed into the village. Bard, what's your family name? My lord, I'm just a commoner. I don't have one, right? In this kingdom, only knights and above get surnames. Even citizens don't have them, let alone commoners. You're pretty young for a village chief. Shouldn't it be an elder? He explained about his father, the previous chief who died fighting a magical beast, throat pierced through. The villagers elected Bard out of gratitude. He'd been carrying the village on his young shoulders ever since. Your father sounds like a real hero. Thank you, my lord. He's always been my role model. A flash of genuine pride crossed his face. First real emotion I'd seen from him. Then the smell hit me. Something absolutely foul was wafting from both sides of the road. The capital has sanitation workers for this kind of thing, but a remote border village? Forget it. Sanitation goes on the priority list, I muttered under my breath. Thank God my manor wasn't in the village. I'd get a lung infection within a week breathing this every day. Bard, how many people are in the village right now? The original villagers number 313. With the 500-plus slaves your lordship sent ahead, we're at just over 800. Oh right, those were the slaves Uncle Bord gave me as my coming-of-age gift. They'd arrived before I did. With that many extra mouths, is there enough food? The Viscount had grain purchased from a neighboring town and sent here. Distributed to everyone. We actually had about 20% more food than usual this winter, he answered honestly. He'd personally distributed every grain. Didn't even keep a share for himself or his sister. One of my knights eventually noticed and gave him some rations out of pity. Did anyone starve this winter? My lord, we lost 5 elderly and 2 children this winter. All from illness. Nobody starved or froze to death. He said this with a smile. A proud one. Most winters, the village lost a dozen or more to cold and hunger. His own mother had died shortly after giving birth to his sister, too weak to survive the season. Good, I nodded, satisfied. My eyes drifted to the surrounding farmland. It was early spring, snow still partly on the ground, no planting yet. That actually worked in my favor. I'd brought improved rice seeds from the capital. Once the snow fully melted and we cleared some new farmland with the slaves, we should have enough to feed everyone. Then I noticed something. The fields were surrounded by wooden fences, crude stockades with bloodstains on them. Bard, what are these fences for? To keep the magical beasts from coming down the mountain, my lord. Magical beasts come down the mountain. There was indeed a mountain range at the village's edge, a branch of the endless mountains. So the local wildlife liked to visit. Lovely. The fences slow them down a little when magical beasts raid the fields, but Bard trailed off. Yeah, wooden fences against magical beasts. Not exactly an iron wall. Besides magical beasts, you're close to the endless mountains. Any other races come raiding for food? Bard pointed at the nearby mountain range. There are small beastkin who've wandered down from deeper in the mountains, and to the north. Some elves and half-elves come by to take food from the village sometimes. He said, take, but I could tell from his hesitation that it was probably more like trading. These non-humans likely brought wild goods to swap for grain. But Bard wasn't going to admit that to a nobleman's face. Most nobles hate non-humans, and he was terrified I'd fly into a rage and slaughter the whole village for fraternizing with them. I could see the worry in his eyes, not just for his own people, but for those mountain-dwelling non-humans who'd lose their only trading partner if I cracked down. They're all just people trying to survive, I sighed quietly. We walked further into the village. Scattered wooden shacks dotted the landscape, the original villagers' homes spread out carelessly. Then I noticed a cluster of tightly packed, neatly arranged houses with non-humans coming and going. Those were the 500 slaves sent ahead from the capital. Their houses were built over the past few months, organized in rows for easier management. The contrast between the two sections was pretty obvious. How have villagers been getting along with the slaves? I asked. They? Well, it's been okay, I suppose. They are your lordship's slaves, so we wouldn't dare mistreat them. Standard diplomatic answer. What he wasn't saying was probably more interesting. His villagers were lower-class citizens, barely above slaves themselves in the social hierarchy. The slaves were mostly small beastkin, not the large beastkin who actually invaded human territory. Bard even mentioned hearing old village stories about how humans and small beastkin used to live together as equals 1,000 years ago, before humans grew powerful and pushed them into the mountains. And honestly, his family's story wasn't that different. His great-grandfather was a full citizen. Then the family offended some noble, got demoted to slaves, and his grandfather and father spent their lives clawing back up to commoner status, only to be pushed out to this remote border. Just like those beastkin pushed into the mountains. Plus, the slaves had lived in villagers' homes during winter, and the villagers got extra grain rations as compensation. Hard to hate people who brought free food with them. But of course, Bard wasn't about to tell a noble lord that his villagers actually liked the non-human slaves. That kind of talk could get everyone killed. Good, I nodded without expression. His answer told me nothing useful about how these people truly felt about other races. I'd need to dig deeper. Ask my shadow guards later for the real story. Whose house is this? I pointed at a 2-story wooden house. Mine, my lord. It was positioned right at the village entrance. Smart. He could intercept tax collectors before they entered the village, and it was closest to the main farmland, so he could respond first when magical beasts attacked. Always standing between his people and danger. Good kid. Let's rest at your place for a bit. I'm tired from walking. My lord, it's dirty inside. I'm not very tidy. I'd hate to soil your clothes. I don't mind. I walked in before he could protest further. I'd noticed he really didn't want me going inside, which meant he was hiding something. And wouldn't you know it, I was feeling a little mischievous today. Let's see what secrets the village chief was keeping. The house was actually clean inside despite looking run down from the outside. Someone clearly tidied up regularly. A few wild fruit sat on the table. Bard's life was obviously tight, but at least somewhat stable. He glanced around the room and quietly exhaled with relief. He must have moved whatever he was hiding. Probably sent someone away this morning before coming to meet me. The first floor was his kitchen and dining area. Half a barrel of grain sat in the corner, mostly rice, the stuff my people had distributed. The Viscount who'd overseen the setup knew my personality. Rather than skim off a few bags of grain and risk annoying me, he'd been generous. Smart man. Not his money anyway. That Viscount who asked us to house your slaves also gave us grain, Bard explained when he noticed me looking. When the slaves moved to their own houses, we got to keep the leftover food. I nodded. Whether that Viscount was being kind or just buttering me up didn't matter. As long as my people had food and were alive, that's what counted. I really did want the people in my territory to live well. That's when I heard a rustling noise coming from upstairs. Is someone upstairs? I asked casually, while my shadow guards had already drawn their short swords and were watching the second floor. Didn't you mention you have a sister? Bard's face went pale. She's at a friend's house. That's probably just a red-tailed rat. Small magical beast. Sorry about that, my lord, rural area problems. He was desperately trying to convince himself more than me. His sister was safe at his friend's house. She was not upstairs. That was a rat. Definitely a rat. Young master, there's a small beastkin girl up there, my shadow guard reported. I watched Bard nearly pass out on the spot. You could practically see his thoughts spiraling. Why is she here? What was his friend doing? He had one job. Then Bard grasped at his last straw and forced out a slimy smile. That must be my slave, my lord. Probably cleaning. Slave? I gave him a look. Bard, I believe only citizens have the right to own slaves. Are you a citizen? His knees hit the floor so hard I was genuinely worried he shattered his kneecaps. My lord, I'm ignorant of the law. Please forgive me. Bring her down, I told the guard upstairs. Something didn't add up. He barely had enough food for himself. How was he feeding a slave? The guard carried the little girl down by her collar like a kitten. She squirmed, but had zero chance against a trained operative. When he set her down, I got a good look at her. Dusty from trying to hide, but clearly a cute kid underneath. And she looked about 30% like Bard. Come here, little one. I waved her over. She wanted to run, but my guards were behind her. She looked at her brother kneeling on the floor, bit her lip, and walked toward me with shaky steps. That's when I noticed she had MY family's plum blossom mark on her face. Expertly done too. Except it was painted on and had smudged during her struggle. She was a mouse-type beastkin. Specifically, a hamster subspecies. Oversized round hamster ears on a tiny head, and a little ball of fluffy tail trembling behind her. Adorable. I wiped her face gently. What's your name, little one? Doreen. She squeaked. Who painted this plum blossom on your face? I did it myself. I had to smile at that. Mirrors are luxury items in this kingdom. How would they afford one? And without a mirror, how could she paint such a detailed copy of my family crest on her own face? Bard, what's your relationship with this girl? I pulled the little hamster onto my lap. Tanya shot me a look that clearly said, and you still won't admit you're a lullican. I ignored her. Every species feels different when you pat their head. That's precisely why I need to collect them all. My lord, she's a slave I keep at home. I don't have my own brand mark, so I forged yours to prevent her from being taken. I deserve death for this crime. Please spare my life. Bard was thinking fast. In his mind, saying she was his slave was his only play. Nobles see all non-humans as slaves by default. If he admitted she was a free person, she'd be seized immediately. Claiming ownership, even illegally, was her only thin shield. Last chance. Tell the truth, and you live. Lie to me, and I'll throw you to the wild dogs outside. I kept my voice cold. My lord, this is the truth. He was shaking from head to toe, but wouldn't budge. She was his sister. His real sister. Born from the same mother. He would die before letting anyone take her. Okay, little hamster. Tell me, what's he to you? Tell the truth, or I'll drop you in the outhouse. It's really stinky in there, I said to the girl in my arms. The little hamster looked at her brother and opened her mouth. But, my lord, she's my sister. Bard collapsed forward, all his strength gone. He'd broken. He realized his sister would lie to protect him, call herself a slave so he wouldn't get punished. And he'd seen that I'd already figured out the family resemblance. Continuing the charade was pointless. He could accept death for himself, but she had to live. See? Was that so hard? I rubbed the little hamster's head. Every species really does have a unique texture. This is exactly why the collection must be complete. Bard, get up. He stood, gray-faced, ready for whatever sentence I'd hand down. Go get me a cup of water. Get one for your sister, too. Look at this little hamster's dry lips. He numbly brought 2 cups. My guards tested for poison first, then handed me one. I gave the other to the little hamster and was about to drink mine when Tanya blocked me. Young master, you said yourself, never drink unboiled water. I looked at her. Then I looked at the little hamster who'd already gulped down most of hers. Could you have mentioned that before I gave it to her? She'll be fine, though. These people have been drinking raw water their whole lives. One more cup won't matter. Bard stood there like a dead man walking. He'd given up on himself. His only wish was for his sister to survive. And he was mentally composing a very angry ghost letter to his friend Arcade. One job. Protect his sister. One job. Then I looked at him and smiled. Bard, honestly? Seeing you and this little hamster made my day. Bard, seeing you and this little hamster actually makes me happy. Happy? He looked totally lost. Couldn't tell if I was being sincere or sarcastic. Don't get it? That's fine. Let's keep walking. Show me the rest of the village. And obviously I was bringing the little hamster with me. You think I'm letting go of a perfectly ruo-able, beast-eared little girl? Not a chance. Bard led the way, still looking shell-shocked. He gave me the basic rundown. 300 residents, 50 of them serving as a militia of sorts. I say militia, loosely. These guys could barely feed themselves, so their fighting power was about what you'd expect. All 50 combined probably couldn't beat one of my knights. They just handled the occasional magical beast that wandered into the village. Thanks to your lordship's knights, the magical beasts and raiders were dealt with this winter. Usually our men would still be nursing wounds right about now, Bard said, doing his best to butter me up. Not bad. I looked over the militia guys. They carried makeshift weapons, wood-cutting axes, sticks, a couple of rusty hand-me-down spears. Terrible quality, but well-maintained. You could tell they cleaned them regularly. These people took their survival seriously. The militiamen stared at me curiously. I was only the second noble they'd ever seen, the first being the viscount who came to build my manor. They didn't know the difference between a baron and a viscount, but they could tell my clothes were nicer, even if I looked considerably less muscular. In their village, a guy with my build would be doing laundry and babysitting with the women. And hey, I did have 2 kids with me. One was Tanya, and the other, wait, is that Doreen? Sharp-eyed militia members recognized the little hamster holding my hand. Everyone in the village knew Bard's sister was a small beastkin. See, this village is uniquely positioned. It takes half a day to reach the endless mountains. A fast walker could have lunch on the nearest hilltop by noon. But the closest human city? 3 to 4 days away. There's a saying, distant relatives aren't as good as close neighbors. For Sunset Village, non-humans are their neighbors. Humans are the distant relatives. These folks don't share the typical attitude that only humans are people and everyone else is livestock. They've been living alongside small beastkin for generations. Bard's own mother was a non-human, a short-tailed mouse beastkin. She'd been injured by a magical beast, and Bard's father found her, took her in, and they fell in love while she recovered. There were several similar mixed families in the village, but they'd all been keeping their non-human members hidden indoors since my people arrived. Only the human-looking family members went outside. Most children from human beastkin couples end up looking like beastkin, but a rare few come out human, like Bard. The militiamen were baffled. Why was this noble lord gently holding Doreen's hand? And why was Doreen blushing and hiding behind him like a shy little girl instead of trembling in fear? Aren't nobles supposed to hate non-humans? They started signaling Bard with their eyebrows. What happened? Why is Doreen out here? Didn't you hide her? I left her with Arcade. That idiot let her run home. So what's the deal? Why is this noble carrying her around? I have no idea. I watched their eyebrow conversation from the side and nearly laughed out loud. Did they seriously not realize how obvious their wiggling eyebrows were? Come on, little hamster. Tell me, what's fun to see around here? I rubbed Doreen's head. Her tail was too short to pet without it looking inappropriate. And I am not a Lilicon. I want to make that absolutely clear. There's a church over there, and a lake where the villagers worship a lake goddess. They say she's really powerful. Church? Lake goddess? That was weird. What was a church doing in this remote backwater? There was nothing here worth preaching over. And if they already had a church, why also worship a lake spirit? This village's spiritual life was all over the place. The little hamster was starting to relax around me. The church has a pretty nun sister. And the grown-ups say there's a lake goddess sister in the lake too. But I've only seen the nun's sister, not the lake goddess sister. Now that got my attention. A pretty nun? How pretty? Is she a non-human? These are critical questions. I interrupted Bard's eyebrow conference with the militia. Bard, the little hamster says there's a church and a lake goddess nearby. Take me there. I'm not little hamster. My name is Doreen. She mumbled quietly. I'm calling you little hamster, and there's nothing you can do about it. I tweaked one of her round hamster ears, making her whole body jolt. These beastkin girls' animal parts are so sensitive. Absolutely irresistible to touch. Tanya watched me from behind, and I could practically hear her diagnosis. Young Master's Lilicon disease is terminal. No cure exists. My lord, this is the village church. Bard brought us to what was basically a slightly oversized 2-story building. No religious symbol on top, so I couldn't tell which god it belonged to. There was even a little vegetable garden out back with some sad, wilted, cold-resistant greens. Let's go in, my lord. This is a holy place. Maybe not so many armed people should enter. Bard-eyed my squad of weapon-carrying shadow guards nervously. Fair point. I don't believe in gods, but I respect local customs. Kerr, stay outside with the others. Honey and Tanya, you're with me. My guards lined up on either side of the church entrance like they were welcoming a mafia boss. Very subtle, guys. Inside was surprisingly different from the outside. A bright white magic-powered lamp illuminated the room. Rows of handmade wooden benches and tables. Decent craftsmanship, probably carved by villagers. And sitting right in the center was a girl. Golden hair falling past her shoulders, glowing softly under the white lamp. White robes, a proper nun's habit, though the hood was down. Behind her stood a damaged stone statue, missing its head and one hand after who knows how many years of weathering. The statue's remaining arm was spread open, positioned perfectly above the praying girl below. The whole scene radiated sacred, untouchable holiness. Except the nun was hunched over a gray clay bowl, shoveling rice into her mouth. In front of her sat a tiny dish of boiled vegetables with zero visible oil. I wasn't even sure there was salt in it. Huh? Someone's here to pray at this hour? Hold on. Let me finish this bite. She looked up mid-chew, then froze. She didn't recognize any of us. Take your time. I sat down across from her and waved for Tanya and Honey to sit too. Tanya coiled her tail on the bench. Honey took the seat closest to the nun. I looked the girl over and sighed internally. Human. Not a beastkin. Not a little girl either. Boring. Are you? The Baron by Luo they mentioned? She had rice stuck to the corner of her mouth. I nodded, then glanced at her bowl. You eat well. Not from around here. Are you? In the White Dragon Kingdom, rice exists, but most people eat rough, unpolished grain because hulling is labor-intensive. The cheap stuff, millet, sorghum, mixed with wild greens and beans, that's the standard village meal. But this girl had polished white rice. Same quantity of polished rice could buy 6 times as much rough grain. You caught me. She put her bowl down. Being a nun pays exactly 0. This is all my own money. The villagers grow some rice and sell it in town for better prices to cover taxes or trade for cheaper grain. I buy a little from them at a slight discount and hull it myself. Takes time, but hey, I only get to eat like this twice a year though. What's your name? Saynard Whitewood. Noble? My father was a baron. I nodded. Her manners and posture were definitely noble bred. Well, except for the hunched over a bowl in a church thing. Current status? Knight class. Not an actual combat knight. She meant her social rank. Knight class sits above citizen, but below quasi-baron. It's the doorstep of nobility. Titles drop 1 rank per generation, so a baron's daughter becomes knight class. It keeps declining until it hits citizen level, which is the floor for most people. Baron, sir? Are you here to do a census? Saynard asked. More or less. Everyone in my territory is a commoner at most. A knight class person suddenly appearing deserves a few questions. Are you done asking? Why? Getting impatient, Honey's hand was already on her short sword. One wrong word from this girl, and her throat would be opened before she could blink. No, it's just. Can I go to the bathroom? Saynard squirmed awkwardly. Oh, sure. She bolted toward a small room behind the statue. While she was gone, I looked around properly. The white lamp was a cheap model, bright but power-hungry. She probably had to recharge it with magic every night. The headless, one-handed statue was expertly carved despite its damage. Some skilled sculptor made this a long time ago. The tables and benches were spotless. This girl clearly cleaned regularly. I kept circling back to the statue. Stone, masterfully crafted, cracked in places from age and poor storage, missing its head and one hand. I had no idea which god it represented. This world has way too many deities to keep track of. So which order are you with? I asked when she came back from the bathroom. She blinked, then shook her head. I don't belong to any order. Then whose statue is that? No idea. I found it half buried in the dirt on my way here and had the villagers dig it up and put it inside. So you're a fake nun scamming people on MY territory? Scamming? She puffed her cheeks. I haven't taken a single thing from these people. I buy my own food with my own money. Everything in here I paid for. Then what are you even doing here? Good question. She could afford magic lamps. She was knight class. Her father was a baron. Even if barons are common, that's not. Flee to the middle of nowhere. broke. What was she after? And for a pretty girl like her to be alone, in a remote village, one wrong move, and she'd end up kidnapped into the mountains as someone's wife, then sold to a brothel when they got bored. Terrible fate. I was originally running away from an arranged marriage, she mumbled. Oh, how delightfully cliché. Later my family found me and explained the marriage was actually arranged for my maid, to help her become a citizen faster. I'd misunderstood the whole thing. But by then I'd already stumbled here with a merchant convoy, and the people were nice, so I just stayed. As a nun, interesting story. But wait, what merchant convoy comes through this wasteland? Honey answered that one. Young master, her father is Morris Whitewood, chief tax officer of Moonlight City. My shadow guards had arrived months before me. They'd already investigated every person in this village down to their ancestors. All the intel was sitting on my desk at the manor. I just hadn't read it yet because I wanted to see things firsthand. Morris Whitewood. Why does that name ring a bell? He served as a guard at the Earl's estate for a time, Honey continued. 10 years ago, he was transferred to the battlefield, got injured, earned a baron title, then was assigned to Moonlight City, Earl's estate. Wait, you're not the Luo by long, are you? Saynard's eyes went wide as the dots connected. Took you long enough. My father only said some important noble was coming. He didn't say who. Well, now that you know, confess. What are you really doing here pretending to be a nun? I decided to have some fun. She wasn't a beastkin or a little girl, but she was pretty enough. I bet she'd look cute crying. Tell me the truth, or else. I put on my sleaziest expression. Or else what? I have over a dozen ways to make you assume a dozen different positions on my bed. Believe me, she snorted and burst out laughing. You're right. Father said Baron Luo is the kindest, most gentle person. You'd never bully anyone like that. That my good reputation is really becoming a problem, isn't it? Fine, just explain properly. I dropped the act. I'm not really pretending, she said, propping her chin on her hand. This church existed before I got here, but there was no nun or priest. The villagers don't follow any specific god. They pray to whoever seems relevant. Good harvest? Life goddess. No monster attacks? War god. Want a healthy baby? Mother of fertility. Their faith is all over the place. When I ran away from home, I'd knocked out a real nun who was annoying my family and stolen her clothes. When I showed up here dressed like that, everyone just assumed I was the real deal. At first I was planning to mooch off them, and then I realized these people are genuinely nice. Nobody tried anything with me. They actually brought me food because they were worried I'd go hungry. And I noticed they didn't really care which god they prayed to. They just needed something to believe in. Comfort. Hope, she smiled. Honestly, you could swap that statue for one of yourself, and they probably wouldn't care. Anyway, I gradually settled in for real. Started actually acting like a nun, giving people spiritual support. And then somehow, she pulled out a staff and pointed it to the side. A white glow appeared. That's faith-type holy magic. You actually became a real priestess? I couldn't hide my surprise. Beats me. I used to be a knight, she shrugged. One day I could just do it. My knight skills still work too, so that's nice. Fascinating. A fake nun who played the role so sincerely that she somehow awakened genuine divine powers. This world never stops surprising me. Enough about me, though. What's a royal family member doing in this dump? She asked. I have my reasons. Anyway, I should get going. If you're bored, drop by my manor sometime. You seem to have a lot of free time. Hee hee, the villagers only come by in the evenings, so my days are pretty empty. She blushed slightly. She knew what she was, a runaway daughter playing pretend nun while living off daddy's money. One more thing. Know anything about that lake goddess the villagers mentioned? There's definitely something in that lake. But what exactly? I've never seen it. She shook her head. All right then. I nodded and headed out with Tanya and Honey. The moment I stepped out of the church, Bard was right there. He'd probably been worrying the whole time that the young, pretty nun was alone with a nobleman. In their experience, noble is basically a synonym for does terrible things to people. Though judging by the time frame and my general physical condition, he was probably also calculating that I couldn't have done much even if I'd wanted to. Let's go see that lake goddess. I rubbed my hands together and grabbed little Doreen's paw again. It was still early spring, snow not fully melted, and I was getting chilly. I wanted to check this last spot and then go home, crawl under the covers, and cuddle my little rabbit girl. Bard started leading the way. The lake was a decent walk from the church. Along the way, We passed a guy in rough hemp clothes squatting outside his door, slurping some kind of grain porridge. He looked up, saw our group, and his eyes locked onto little Doreen being held by my hand. His whole body froze mid-slurp. I also noticed Bard shooting this man a very particular look. I stopped. You know him? That's my friend Arcade, my lord. He's the village blacksmith, repairs all the farming tools. Bard's face said, friend, but his eyes said, I want to strangle him. I could guess why. This was the genius who was supposed to be protecting Doreen. Got some business with him? Not exactly a grudge, my lord. But I wouldn't mind punching him a few times if the opportunity arose. I grabbed Tanya's cold little hand. Go deal with it. Come find us when you're done. Tanya tried to pull away, but I held tighter. Young master, my hand is cold, she whispered once Bard was gone. That's exactly why I'm holding it. Warming you up, I breathed warm air onto our clasped hands. Snake people can't handle cold, and you insisted on coming along. You're practically frozen stiff. She looked down without saying anything, but I could tell she wasn't just feeling warmth in her hands. Meanwhile, a much less heartwarming scene was playing out behind us. From what my shadow guards reported later, Bard marched up to Arcade, waited for the man to put his bull down, and decked him right in the face. Arcade was bigger. He's a blacksmith after all, but the punch still knocked him flat. Bard climbed on top and added 2 more punches to the chest. Arcade didn't fight back. He knew he'd screwed up. I told you to protect Doreen. How did you protect her? Bard grabbed his collar. Arcade tried to explain. He'd put Doreen in the underground cellar like planned. They'd even dug a tunnel from the cellar to the forest for emergency escapes. He'd been checking on her regularly. She'd even asked to go home for something of their late father's, and he'd talked her out of it. She was there every time he checked. How did she end up at Bard's house? Then it clicked. Bard's face went red with fury. You idiot. Remember when you first dug that tunnel? You dug it straight into the field next to my house. She walked right through your stupid tunnel and popped out next to home. Bard raised his fist again, but couldn't bring himself to hit his friend a 4th time. Arcade peeked at Doreen, holding my hand in the distance. What's the situation? Is she safe? I honestly don't know. This noble is. Strange. But Doreen doesn't seem to be in danger for now. Otherwise, I'd already be skinning you alive. Arcade's eyes got a sharp, calculating look. Bard, what if we rebel? Just take her back by force. Bard slapped his hand over Arcade's mouth so fast it made a cracking sound. Are you insane? Do you want to die? I'm serious. Doreen isn't the only beastkin or half-elf hiding in this village. Before, we answered directly to the king. We paid our taxes, and nobody bothered us. But now there's a noble lord with his mansion right next door. What happens when the others get discovered too? Become slaves? I say we fight. Shut up, Bard slapped him again. There are 10 knights, 10 mages, and those weird-dressed elite guards less than a kilometer away. Our entire village couldn't take one of them. We don't even outnumber his slaves. You think we can rebel? Why do you think I've been groveling? It's to keep everyone alive. If we anger him, we all die. You, me? That's whatever, but what about the others? Doreen? Old Man Nord? Auntie Grell? Radel's wife just had a baby. Did you know that? Stay home and keep your mouth shut. This noble is not ordinary. His rank is baron. That's below a viscount. But the viscount who came to build his manor? That man spoke about this baron with respect, almost like he was afraid. Couldn't the viscount be his father? Have you ever seen a father talk about his own son like he's bowing to a superior? Why, young master? Are my brother and Arcade fighting? Little Doreen looked worried, watching the 2 men in the distance. She'd picked up, young master, from hearing everyone else use it. Good enough for me. That's not fighting. That's just a father-son moment. Father-son moment? She tilted her head. You'll understand when you're older. I watched the 2 of them from afar, but I already knew everything. My shadow guards had dug up every detail about both men and briefed me while Bard was off punching his buddy, including the fact that Arcade had spent 3 months digging an escape tunnel, one that my guards had been watching the entire time. They'd even laughed for days about him accidentally digging it in the wrong direction toward Bard's house. But that wasn't even the juiciest part. Arcade was actually a fugitive, 20 years old. 5 years ago, some night-class scumbag violated his mother. She hanged herself from the shame. Arcade stalked the man for 3 months and killed him during an outing outside the city. Then he ran. Under kingdom law, a commoner killing someone 2 ranks above him is a death sentence. But the kid was tough. He crossed mountains and fled west until he ended up here in Sunset Village. The experience left him with a deep hatred of all nobles. He was the most dangerous person in the village, bar none. He had weapons hidden at home and was openly suggesting rebellion to Bard. My hidden puppet Zhang Wei was standing right next to them, hearing every word. Did I care? Not really. 300 villagers couldn't beat my 10 knights. They probably couldn't even beat the 10 horses, which were mid-level magical beasts that literally ate meat. What kind of rebellion were they going to mount? With pitchforks? Please. Besides, I wanted to see if I could change Arcade's view of nobles. If I couldn't even manage that, what was the point of coming here to create a better world? Might as well go home and be a useless rich kid living off Dad's inheritance. Bard jogged back, breathing hard. Apologies, my lord. All settled. Good. Let's see this lake goddess. After that, I'm going home to rest. This way, my lord. Whatever his abilities, Bard was clearly devoted to protecting his people. I respected that. My impression of him was actually improving. Have you ever seen this lake goddess? I asked as we walked. I haven't personally, my lord. But my father saw her, and many village elders have too. Then how do you know she's still in the lake? I don't believe in gods. Never have. In my past life, I once spent 20 yuan on incense at a temple, prayed to Buddha for a 1,000,000 yuan windfall, then bought 2 scratch tickets right there in front of the statue. Didn't even win back the cost of the tickets and the incense. That was the day I became a committed atheist. Even in this world full of magic, I'm convinced that so-called gods are just slightly more powerful creatures. This lake goddess was probably the same, if it even existed. My lord, every year we offer fruits, vegetables, and fish to the lake. At first the offerings float on the surface, but then a whirlpool appears and pulls them to the bottom. And if we offer land animal meat, the goddess throws it back out. It's incredible. Bard's eyes were shining. Before Saynard the fake nun arrived, this lake goddess was the only deity that actually responded. In a village where people struggle daily just to eat, having something to believe in matters. This was their anchor. Fascinating. I'd love to meet this divine being. I said it casually, but I was genuinely curious. Too bad this world doesn't have lottery tickets. I'd love to do another scratch-off right in front of a god, just to test my luck theory. My lord, the goddess hasn't appeared in 20 years. She might not show herself. Bard was getting nervous, probably worried I'd throw a noble tantrum if nothing happened. If she doesn't show, she doesn't show. What am I going to do? Drain the lake. Then I paused. Actually, I could drain it. I had 10 mages with me. The guards said the lake was deep, but not wide. My mages could probably pump it dry. But no, respecting local beliefs and all that. I was just here to look, not start an incident. We've arrived, my lord. The divine lake turned out to be a slightly oversized pond. Not exactly the majestic body of water I'd imagined, but the surroundings were genuinely beautiful. Early spring buds were already appearing on the trees, and several cold-weather flowers similar to plum blossoms were in full bloom. There was a feeling of new life stirring everywhere. Then a little bird landed on my head with a flower in its beak. Chirp, chirp, right on schedule. My one golden finger, magical beast affinity, delivering its daily flower delivery service. Very useful power. Truly world-changing.